Hello, everyone. It's Dawn here, and I am with TSP. How's everyone doing?
Hello.
Welcome, TSP. Thanks for joining me. It's so good to see you in person.
It's very nice to see you. I just had to turn my other sound off. So yeah,
Okay,
there, and we're all set to go. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great. I'm so excited to chit chat about whatever might come up. And for those watching, also, Steve will be joining us in about half an hour. And so I have wanted for so long, TSP. First of all, your videos are just so great,
Thank
and
you. Appreciate
really
that.
want to thank you for what you do, particularly for the Dan Markel true crime community, because we're a unique bunch, and you're just so talented, and
Thank
just
you.
love that you're on the scene and you decided to offer up your art. So I want to talk to you about how that came to be, how you became a video maker, and what your background is a little bit. And were you an artist as a child, for example?
Um, I came from creative parents. My
Hmm.
father was a woodworker, and I picked up a lot of those skills from him, which I still use a lot of those skills to build my own things around here. And I do my own
Mm.
remodeling of my houses and stuff like that. So I got a lot of great skills from my dad for that. And he built a lot of cabinetry and just different things. And then my mom, she painted and created different crafts, and she ended up taking a lot of his wood scraps and she'd turn them into even
Ooh.
other art. So I grew up mainly. I say that what the beneficial part of it was, I grew up people living in sort of, right, like kind of blazing their own trail. And it's not always easy. It can be feast or famine, right?
Mhm.
But
Right.
but I got a great work ethic from both of my parents because of that, and inspiration. Although I think my mom was especially pretty nervous when I chose filmmaking.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not, that's funny. I came from very creative parents too. My dad had like a traditional job, and my mom was mostly at home until I got older. But I came from lots and lots of artists. And so my parents were the opposite. They're like, be a singer,. Be an artist. And then, I get my high school counselor is like, no, go to law school. Just, you're not, don't be poor the rest of your life, because it's a
Right.
struggle. Yeah. So it is not, any of the arts are not the easiest to, as you said, find your way and become successful. So
Hmm.
you went into, so did you study filmmaking in LA or somewhere?
I did in the Bay Area, actually, in
Okay.
a little town called Cupertino.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a computer
Familiar.
company there that you.
That's right.
Yeah, so literally, it was right. It's called De Anza College, and when I was going there, it had the reputation, I guess, of being, it's like a community college, but it was like the number one community college in California. So it had a great reputation. And the reason I found it for film school was I was at a. Do you remember? Does anyone out there chat remember Spike and Mike's animation festivals? They might still be around, but they were hot back in the like 80s and 90s and probably into the 2000s even. Yeah, it was just a traveling film festival of short films, short animation particularly. And we saw it locally in San Jose, Cupertino area where I lived at the time. And at the end, it said made at De Anza College. And we were like, hey, that's here. So we need to check this place out, and went in there and found out that what it was this fantastic film program they had going on, and,
Wow.
and television program as well, where you could get hands on almost immediately. And they had most of the instructors there were because Palo Alto is just up the road, Cupertino, right? And so Stanford. And so most of the instructors there were Stanford documentary grads, Stanford puts out some of the best documentary filmmakers that are out there. Um, So a lot of those guys were just at De Anza teaching what they'd learned, but we were more pursuing fiction film, like feature fiction filmmaking and making shorts at school, of course. But so yeah, I always wonder if I got a certain bent to the way I look at things just because I had those documentary filmmakers teaching you about, you know, you know,
Right.
they were into like everything's propaganda,
Right.
and that they're going like, you can't get away from it. Every thought you have is propaganda. So just get used to it. And because a lot of people aren't that honest with themselves because, you're trying to put your point of view across. So,
Right.
yeah. So anyway, so it was, yeah, I look very fondly back at those
Mhm.
days. And the year that I left there, they had built this huge new film facility. Apple had funded a lot of it. Yeah, I mean, it was a full on like studios and Foley rooms and edit rooms and sound
Wow.
stages. Yeah, pretty crazy. I went back and saw it, and so it was pretty neat. So anyway, yeah, and so most of my time there was spent in a was sort of an experimental class that was only there because there was one instructor there to teach it. No one else was going to teach. It was his brainchild, and he taught it for years. And it was called Fiction Workshop. So you go into this. When we entered, there had been people already there for a while and had gone through the paces and were directing, and new people were coming in to do craft services. Sometimes we'd have to work on the food on a shoot, and then you'd work your way
Mhm.
through different shoots, and at the same time you kind of were pursuing what you wanted to do. And I was with my brother. We pursued a directing producing track, so we were going through as directors and producers, and that's where we ended up producing, essentially producing the short film that we came out of film school with, is through that class. So
Oh, wonderful. So that one class really gave you a twist into where you were going to go with your future.
yeah, because we
You
could crew.
pivoted. Yeah.
Yeah, because we could crew. You would crew with like a cinematographer who wanted to be a cinematographer, and he knew his equipment. He knew what he was doing. And you'd have 25 people on your crew, everyone with a very specific job,
Yeah.
and it was just, we were trying to run things professionally because we knew the real world was coming, right? And so it's like, let's like just run it that way and just do it that way. So yeah, it was a fantastic experience.
I love that. So how old were you when you finished film school?
I was older actually, so let me figure this out. I was in very early 30s when we
Mhm.
finished the film and got and started around film festivals, and and there's a big difference now between making a short film and then, because it was a 16 millimeter short, and
Right.
it cost us $20,000 to make it.
Yes. Right. Big
We literally,
difference.
like
Yeah.
a real $20,000. We got some
Hmm.
donations and stuff like that, but we
Hmm.
mainly, like my brother and I, luckily we lived in Silicon Valley, and he had a good job at Santa Clara University. I had a good job in a tech company, in an interactive television company. Strangely enough, I was doing that while I was going to film school. So,
Oh,
um,
that's cool.
yeah, that was amazing as well. So just to have all of that other experience working with software engineers and creating some of the first digital content on, it was before the web and everything. So uh,
Right.
yeah. Anyway, yeah,
Old school in a way. You're not old, but older school.
yeah, yeah.
That's
Well,
that's yeah. I can
yeah.
relate. Yeah.
Well, ask me a question. I feel like I'm just kind of
No,
rambling on.
I love it. No, we're all loving. I can tell from the chat that everyone is digging this. You okay, so you mentioned something. You said your brother went to school with you. So are you like twins or
Film
something?
school. No, he's 4 years older than I am.
And he decided to go with you to
Yeah,
school? That's cool.
he had already had his master's by the time we moved to California. He got it at Ball State here here in Indiana.
Yeah.
um, and yeah, so then I went out there, and I was getting ready to go to school. I was signed up for it in Indiana, and then this opportunity came to move, and I jumped on it. And
Yeah.
so then my school got delayed just because I moved independently to California and had to just figure it all out and everything, right?
Right. Right.
which was fine. It's good that it got delayed because what I ended up doing, I needed to be a little more mature and a little more deciding and to spend all that money on something like that. I'm glad I
Hmm.
didn't do it when I was a lot younger because I probably would have blown it.
Yeah.
So, and I still think it's a pretty good. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I hope I didn't insult you by asking if you went to UCLA. It's just it's closer to me. It's the first thing that people think of.
It's the
I
first
think,
thing a lot of people think of is like,
yeah.
yeah, USC, UCLA, like
Hmm.
USC film schools where all the like the 70s guys went, right? The
Hmm.
Lucases, the Spielbergs, all that. So the film school brats, the
That's right.
first
I
generation
had
film
I had
school.
a friend who was graduating UCLA film school. She invited me to a really cool event. It was just lovely. It was their end of the year for the seniors, and um, they projected basically their best. I think it was like the top 10 or the top 5 from the school, their short films.
Yes.
And she graduated in the same class with Sophia Coppola. So our Coppola, excuse me. And so I got to, so hers was one of them. And I got to meet them all, and she was great. And the work was just so amazing. And being at the
Mhm.
school, I never studied film, art and some photography and that kind of thing, and very old school. I'm a little bit older than you, but it was just so neat. It's just like, oh, I want to go to film school just from that one experience.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's hard work. It's a lot of dedication. But there's so much talent out there, and to be able to land a job and to get noticed and to get the contacts that you need. So, where did you go after school? What was your first
Yeah.
like big gig, or did you have
Well,
to
I'll
wait?
say real quick, I'll add on to that the reality of like filmmaking, like trying to make a feature film is really about like 98% business and 2% filmmaking.
Exactly.
That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff that's just not fun. So, and that's kind of, I'll lead up to that because that's what kind of, and I veered off into, and it was like um, serendipity for me when I finished. Because like when we finished our film, it's a 18-minute short based on a short story of a favorite author of ours, and we had to get permission through the estate. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I haven't really came out yet who I am, and that would track.
Sure,
But
sure.
well, yeah, just for whatever. Um,
That's fine.
um, yeah, so it was based on this short story. Shortly, briefly, it's about two Air Force silo, and they've been down there for a long time, and if something has happened top, and they're trying to decide if they should launch their missiles. Essentially, is the story. So,
Mhm.
um, so we had some good success with it. We took it to several film festivals, like University of Virginia. And then we actually traveled with it there. And then we took it to the Hiroshima Film Festival, or it went to the Hiroshima Film Festival, Las Vegas Literary Film Festival, Movies on a Shoestring. So yeah, so film played around, had some good success, and did what we needed. So, and we had a feature screenplay as well that we were shopping around with it because we knew that when we had the short, like we better be ready for the next step, right? And we got it read a little bit, but then that's where a lot of the disillusionment was set in quickly, but we were still going for it. But then I got hired for a job in San Francisco at a place called CNET Television, CNET, the computer network.
Okay.
And
Right.
that was early 90s. That's just when the web literally, like, because the web came out in 92 or 93, I think, when the web was introduced, like the World Wide Web.
That's about right.
And so they were starting to do television looking at the web, saying like, what's going on the web, like what is this all about, and trying to just, it was really fun programming, actually. So I went in there as a segment producer and worked on, they had like 4 different TV shows, like CNET Central, The New Edge, I made some notes just so I wouldn't forget some of these. But that place for me of note is interesting because that was a year of intensive TV production of just having to crank out stories all the time, and I reported on like the first iteration of QuickTime, QuickTime was the video delivery back then, right?
Right.
And Flash and
Yes.
just all this, new animation that was coming over the internet, it was just all so new.
And fun. It was so fun. I remember, sorry to interrupt, but
No, go ahead.
I remember because I went back to school for some graduate stuff here at UCSD and in graphic design, and I took some Flash classes, and it was just like it was everything, and then it was gone. It was just like, where's Flash? I mean, I spent so much time, doing my final projects and all that, and it's like, okay, well, that's no longer in existence, but making Flash animations was so fun.
Very cool. And I did some of that too. I
Yeah.
learned that interactive TV job I mentioned earlier, that they had their own, because it was coming over a proprietary device in people's homes, right? So they had their own code, their own markup language. So the scripts would work over that technology. So when HTML came along, it was just like, I looked at HTML and was like, that is 1,000 times easier than this code that we're doing right now. So it's like, I can handle HTML like, in a heartbeat. So I worked a little freelance later between jobs, I worked a little freelance building web pages, some people and all that. So that was way before it got complicated. So
right.
For CSS and all that other stuff.
So. I know CSS was like going to put me right over the edge, and I wasn't doing. I was just taking these in school. I wasn't going to do them for real in my work. So but I used them a little. I did some website design and stuff with animation, and I think I like to avoid anything that gets me too into technology too much. I mean, I'll learn as much as I have to get by, and then it's like, that's it. I have like a limit. So what kind of programs do you use now to create your wonderful videos for us on YouTube?
I use Final Cut Pro.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm on a laptop. I'm on a
regular.
For what now is a basic Apple MacBook.
Yeah.
With a big
That's great, because that just tells you what a person can do with just a regular, like you say, with a regular laptop and regular software. Yeah.
Yeah. Because again, when I went to film school, it was all film editing. There was some tape editing, VHS tape editors, right? Which is horrible. And one room, and this is when George Lucas had invented the edit droid a few years before that, but it was like, a digital editor was a thing. But our school had one, but it was under lock and key, and the only time I was ever in that room was with an experienced editor, somebody who, because I never learned the system. It just I was a film student, and so that was so that leaps and bounds over the years of watching Firewire. When Firewire came into digital devices like video cameras, and all of a sudden you could, your camera was recording to a hard drive, or even mini DV tapes. For a while it was still on tape, but it was a digital tape, and then transfer that over. You'd sit there in real time, transfer into your computer, and now it's not even real time. It's just files you dump over. And so it's just the progression is, and now it's just AI stuff is what's really changing video production and all that in a good and bad way. So
it's interesting you mentioned that. I've noticed a couple of groups I'm in that, like an Art Deco group, where people will share their finds or ask about something that they have and the history in that. And in the group rules, it's like absolutely no AI images are allowed in this group because it's getting harder and harder to tell. And then I also saw recently something kind of funny. It was a meme. I'll muck it up, but it was AI is supposed to be helping me like do my laundry and my dishes so that I can do the creative things, not the other way around. So
Yes.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not a fan. Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see where that all
Where
goes.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I do feel like, and I feel lucky that I got to, I stretched far enough back now that I got to edit film, and I got
Yeah.
to see sort
Right.
of the progression of nonlinear linear editing,
Right.
digital nonlinear editing, because film editing is nonlinear, right? So,
Right.
um, it's just tape editing. You got like that little short time of tape editing when it was not, it was all destructive editing. Every cut you had to commit to, right? And go to the next one. And the next one, if
Oh,
you mess up, man, you're sunk, right?
yes, it's a lot. It's a lot. If and even with non-video, like just doing large format cameras back in the day, where you had the big film room in the film and
I
you'd go
used to,
in there
I used
and
to carry
color them.
cameras
Yep,
around and all
yep,
that.
yeah, the hand coloring or the hand fixing, little things on with a little X-Acto knife on your big old negative and all that tedium. And now I'm like, I will only do live streams. I have a podcast where we talk about football. And one of the things I said when we started the podcast is, I'm not editing. This is a first take. Like, there is no way I'm going to spend time because people are like, oh, your podcasts are so great. How do you get all the time for all that editing and stuff? And I'm like, no editing. It's like, this is the way it's going to be. Uh,
Yeah. Well,
you
in
know,
camera editing, those are fun exercises with it, like your phone, whatever is in camera
yeah,
editing. See how good you put something
right.
together,
Right.
but that's a very specific thing to try.
Sure,
So
sure. Yeah. I'm like, I'm so become so lazy, I guess is what I'm trying to say, that I won't even do that. But
yeah,
I do love the whole live format too. But anyway, that's just a side note. Side note.
sure.
Okay, so do you still work with your brother are you still together?
We live in the same town.
Yeah.
I ended up in Bloomington because he was here. Actually, he and his
Aw,
wife. Yeah, that's why I ended up here. He had come here to get his PhD, and so he did that, and then they ended up staying because
nice.
his Bay Area wife preferred Bloomington over going back to the busy and expensive Bay Area.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, and I'm glad they stayed because um,
That's nice.
yeah, but yeah, we haven't done any real creative projects together for a while. He does his own stuff and I do my own stuff, and
Hmm.
we tell each other about what we're working on and all that kind of stuff.
Right, right.
He might, yeah, he's probably lurking in here tonight at some point, I would guess.
Let's say hi to our chat. I'm so rude. I haven't
Yeah,
even said hi to the chat. I'm usually like, we just started chatting with each other. And let me see if I can roll on back up to the top. And by the way, chatters, if you have any specific questions for TSP and his journey of becoming a master YouTuber,
I
you
saw
let
one
us.
question fly by, actually, and it was something. It was asked about famous people I've seen or worked with or whatever. But that goes with my CNET, that whole TV job that I had. That is where I met and worked with. I'd never heard of him because he was a radio guy in LA. Was Ryan Seacrest was one of our hosts,
Oh, nice.
and Ron Reagan Jr. is who was just the nicest person in
He
the whole world.
seems so nice. Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, that guy was he just seemed really real, like a real human being. And I really
Mhm.
enjoyed being around him. Do
Did
some
you know
segments.
he studied
So,
ballet?
yeah, I did know that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Very
Another
cool.
not easy thing to get into.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't worked with a lot of famous people necessarily, but like
Mhm.
I've had like Kyle MacLachlan spilled something on me at Sundance. And Sally Kellerman spilled something on me at Sundance too, if you know who she is.
Sarah
Uh,
Kellerman?
Sally Kellerman. She
Oh,
was in MASH, and yeah.
yes. Oh my gosh, that was a
So
great
I
show.
always joke about those are my answers when people ask me that. It's the people who've spilled things on me. So
There was a brief stint in my lifetime for 4 years where I was taking a break from design and from what I was doing in the apparel industry, and was I worked for 4 years for a software company that developed and produced and supported software for the apparel industry for design and that type of things. And that same type of software, and then also robotics and to cut the
well,
fabric and all this stuff.
wow.
So it was big capital systems, but mostly the software was what I knew about because I was in the industry and I used it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're so like half of my customers were apparel businesses like Gap and Levi up in the Bay Area, for example, big companies. And then half of them were, or the other 50% were other, and either aeronautics, and some of them were even, so I had
Oh,
Disney
all right.
in Anaheim, and I had Pixar up in Emeryville.
Yep.
Did you ever interact with, I love that company.
I had
Everyone there is great.
I had a few. My roommate, who also he went to a different film school than I did, but he had a few friends that worked at Pixar. Sorry, I got a little choked up there.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, so he got to go over there, so I got to see his pictures. And his,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah. Lovely, lovely people. And it was really, I think when I was there, they were just starting with like Monsters Inc., if I'm not mistaken. So it was quite a while back,
Yeah,
20 years ago.
it was an amazing company back then, I think, especially. So
And the building was great. And then I had a little customer across the street from them that were a spinoff from some of the executives from Levi's that did their own thing too. So Tennis Girl has a question.
yeah, I saw.
How how long does it take to produce the average video for you, of course? And do you basically know in advance what you want the final to be? That's a good question.
Interesting. Yeah, some videos I finished in less than a day and a few hours, but those are a little more basic. I did one the other day with a bunch of Wendy testifying, and then at the end it says it calls her a essentially calls her a bitch at the end. But, and that was fast. And then some have taken me literally like they've been around for months, and but I kind of go back and forth, visit, all that kind of stuff. What was the last part of that question?
Do you know what it's going to look like when you start? I guess she's asking, does it just kind of
No.
evolve?
So here's a good example. I think I was telling Jane's World a little bit about this. Is that I found this old '60s TV pilot. I don't want to say too much because I want to premiere it. But it was an old one, it never aired. There's one episode of it. It has a bunch of people in it,
Oh,
recognize.
okay.
Not you won't see their faces because they're covered up with heads, all the heads, but might know the voices. But it just had so many. I just realized I watched it one day. It just popped up on YouTube, and I was watching. It was like an unaired pilot starring these people. Okay, I'm going to see this, and I watched it, and it was okay. It was kind of like Bewitched in a way. Kind of had a magical element to it and everything. And she had
Ooh.
some special powers and everything. So,
Ooh.
anyway, there was just a few. I'll just say that it stars the entire cast of all the trials essentially, except all like Rashbaum and then all the Adelsons and all. It stars all of those people as all the roles, so it's a pretty fun little piece. So I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know where it's going right now because I'm trying to figure that out. And every day a little more comes, and I go, oh crap. I mean, once I had the heads on two wrong characters, and I was doing it. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And then I just and was like, okay, that makes more sense. So sometimes I really don't know.
Yeah, well, that's part of the part of the creative process,
It's
and
the fun part of it. It's
it
just
it is.
it's it kind of really,
It
right?
is. It's the
Yeah.
journey. yeah, I always feel like, oh, that didn't really turn out like I thought, but then it's like I kind of like this better, and
Yep.
whatever. Yeah, not that I'm comparing my work to yours, but
You can't, no, you can't ignore just ideas that come along, and you just can't be
mhm.
too rigid about anything, really. I think you just go with the flow a little bit, because something like just things hit you, right? All of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I didn't think of that. Or I have a few people I show stuff to. Now I've kind of developed, luckily I've developed that,
Yeah.
and they'll give me great feedback. I'm like,
Oh,
oh
that's good. Yeah, that's smart. That's a good
yeah.
an artist that will take criticism or take ideas from others. That's good. I'll be happy to review anything you want and give my 2 cents.
Okay.
Okay, so we have another question from Tennis Girl, but Steven's here, so let's get Neve on here before because we don't want to make him wait too long. Hey, Steve,
Hi, hi, hi.
Hey, Steve, how you doing?
welcome.
Page, big fan.
How
So
you doing?
I'm
How you
really
doing?
good. It's nice to place a face with all that talent, and of course, I already know Dawn.
Thank you.
You
That's
know, so
Yeah, I've made a few appearances now, but I try not to when I can as well. So
and what
I
just
love that.
yeah, I think it's good, right? I mean, it's like Fancy has shown her face. You know, Roberta Glass does occasionally. You
Yeah,
know, of
mhm.
course, we see Dawn. I mean, yeah, you know, yeah, I mean, look, I worked in radio for a long time, and there was always like, "Oh, you have a face for radio," that kind of thing. People say that,
well, sometimes it adds and sometimes it subtracts, right?
right?
Right.
Right. I mean,
Yes.
for me, like, I just showered. You know, I shower once a week, whether I need to or not. So I mean, so if you have to do that kind of stuff, but yeah, so I didn't get a chance to catch uh, what you guys are talking about. So you know,
You're fine. We're fine answering questions at this point, answering chat
Well,
questions.
yeah, and this is a good chat question because it can actually go to both of you gentlemen. So let's take this one. Who is the most famous person you've met? Oh, aside from me. Okay, who's the mace, or maybe that you've worked with? Is there somebody that you're willing to share that you've worked with that we might know?
I'll say, I mean, because I mentioned a few earlier, but I'll say
Yeah.
probably just because I actually met him, and I met him twice in two different companies, was Jerry Rice from the 49ers.
oh wow,
And
Oh wow.
it's because I worked in Bay Area tech companies, and he was interested in the tech companies, and so two different companies I worked for, and I was like, oh, there he is again. And so
That's
he must be an investor, or probably an investor, I would guess,
huh.
in something, not necessarily the companies I was with, but he was looking around though.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He's neat.
well,
He's neat.
tennis
Oh,
girl.
Carla will like that answer. She's a 49ers fan. So
Go Niners.
are you a Niners fan too?
And a Giants fan. Yeah, I lived in San Francisco long enough that it's part home to me. So
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Golden State too. You like the Warriors
yeah, I've never been a
or
huge
Pacers?
NBA fan, but yeah, the Warriors for sure are. I think they're a great team. So, and the Sharks, San Jose Sharks. If you're going to go
Yeah.
with all the Bay Area teams,
Well, they're upset.
they're
You know, the A's are moving to Vegas, and like they're giving a lot of vitriol to, you know,
uh,
they're and even like the A's fans are upset. Like I was just reading an article yesterday, just how they've tried to do it on the cheap, Moneyball, all that, but they're moving to Las Vegas. And in the interim, I think they have to stay in Sacramento for 3 years. It's kind of like those fans are in limbo. And if you're an A's fan, I don't know if you're going to drive. You're going to be like, buzz off,
it's like being a Raiders fan, kind of as well, right?
Right.
Because they were. I mean, they're in Vegas now as well, still, right?
Yeah.
They're in Vegas, but the big news, and I mentioned this on my podcast last week, is that they're now talking about coming back to California, but in Orange County.
Oh, I didn't see that. The
Yeah.
Raiders.
Yeah, and it was reputable. I had a couple
See
different
that
quotes.
though, you know what I mean? Like Vegas,
They're going to start, I guess, by doing half their something like that. I know they're
Wow.
practicing there now.
I
Yeah,
mean, 'cause I
but
feel like
they just built the
if they could
stadium.
sell out in Vegas every month,
I know.
every game, because if the
It's
Patriots are
weird.
playing them or your Packers or any of these other teams, they're going to go to Vegas, or you're just there, you're going to catch it.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's really thrived. Hockey team, won the title, so I don't know. I mean,
It's
the
weird.
WNBA team, but um, tennis girl might like. I mean, I've met some tennis players. I've met McEnroe, Roger Federer.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I've met different presidents, I guess. You know what I mean? Um, I mean, I think in TV it's a little bit like you're meeting a lot of people just as like they're coming on this show. And I think last time, I think I told you when Rachel McAdams came, she was just coming.
Mhm.
She was planning. She wanted to follow like producers around for a morning show. And she was
Oh,
doing
I
that.
remember you saying that now. Yeah.
Yeah, and that I
Yeah,
thought
yeah,
was
yeah.
cool, just because that was a situation where I wasn't expecting to see her, and she was just kind of not programmed or plugging something. She just kind of was herself, and just
She's a favorite actress of mine. I really like her.
just a nice person. I mean, I found her to be really nice,
Mm-hmm.
and just
That's
kind
nice to
of,
hear.
yeah, I thought she was super nice and just super like unassuming and kind of, and I remember like 6 months later or so, there was like a premiere for the movie, and I went, and there was, Harrison Ford, Sigourney Weaver, and I remember, um, like I worked with Harry Smith at the time, and he said, "Oh, do you want me to go reintroduce you?" And I'm like, "Dude, I got this. Don't worry, and I don't need you to co-sign my checks." And so, and she was just very, very nice. Like she remembered it, and just really sweet person, and I don't know, you never know, but I think I'm more inclined. It's kind of like that expression, like cynicism is what passes for insight among mediocre people, right? Like I try and just be positive, give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I'm not as inclined to be negative towards people. Like people could have a bad day, but I do feel like, you know, I don't know. I think it's like if you're not too overtly mean to people or decent,
Mhm.
I mean, but
You're
yeah,
remembered for that. I mean, you're not necessarily ever remembered for it, but people don't dislike you. But you're definitely remembered for being not nice to people, right?
yeah, and yeah, and I for sure, and it's yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of like I've seen it in like different situations. Like I remember, like there's Jeff Bezos one time gave the commencement speech, and he said something to the effect like it's a lot easier to be clever than kind, or just like yeah. And I think last time I was talking about how you know, uh, we had this guest on, and he just wasn't nice that great to the people around, and they're like, okay, look, he's busy, and I said, I know, but it was Kurt Schilling, and he was there because he was Sports Illustrated's like person of the year. Like, do you know what I mean? So that I thought was kind of funny. But I mean, it's funny because like even like last time again, I'm repeating myself because I'm repetitious and redundant. But I think that I mentioned even Stevie Van Zandt, and I happened to watch him on with Bill Maher the other day, and I remember just
I saw that as well. Yeah.
I mean, whenever he's come around, he was always very receptive to people, like grabbing phone calls with him, being
Seems
really
like
nice
a decent guy.
and modest.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like
Yep.
just like self-effacing, modest, and he was like that way with Bill Maher. And I remember, like as a producer, if you're producing segments with people, like I remember I had to go back and kind of look and say, wow, you really helped affect change in South Africa, or you brought all those people together, and I didn't watch the 60 Minutes piece, which I'm sure we counted his whole career, but it's kind of, it just, I've dealt with him a few times over the years. Like, he was like, had the first Netflix show, or, what was it again? The one in Norway. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I'm thinking. Like with the city of
I
Norway,
know. It was a great show.
Olympics. Shoot,
Dang, I can't think of the name. Do you
but
know it on
The Pulitzer, or what are
no
we talking about? The
Steven
event?
Van Zandt, the show
Oh, Stevie.
Lilyhammer,
Lillehammer.
Yes.
right? And
Yes. That's Austria, right? No, where is that?
no,
Yeah.
that's Norway.
Norway.
But
Oh, okay.
they spelled it differently. Like it was just kind of like he kind of like played somebody who's like in the witness protection program, and is all the way in Norway, kind of fish out of water thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's
It
quite
was good though.
Steve Martin's My Blue Heaven in San Diego near Dawn, that kind of movie. But yeah, I mean, I think obviously, and I guess I could help us say, look at Judy.
I'm sorry. I keep flashing. This chat is just so fun. I'm sorry. I hope it's not distracting you.
I'm glad Judy's there. And I saw, and I try and support different people. And I'm sure we're going to talk about Karen Reed. Me personally, I'm probably more interested in Karen Reed case. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the Dan Markel case. I'm less interested in the Chad Daybell. I don't know about you. Society.
I started watching it, and then Karen Reed came up, and I'm not even. I haven't been watching it daily. I just kind of get updates every once in a while.
On the Karen Reed or the Chad Daybell?
Karen Reed. It's same with Daybell too. I just kind of hear things. Don was saying you've been following it, so
I'm the kind of person
following the Chad Daybell as much, and nor have we done a lot. Neither personally or with Joel and Ileana and the team at STS. Yeah. I mean, one, they've been on their book tour the past couple of weeks, so we've kind of done this limited stuff, and I just feel like I don't know, like not everything is gonna just resonate with all of us, right? We're all kind of different, And I remember like a frequent guest on, Survivors, John Singer, and occasionally I've said, "Oh, what do you think about this?" He's like, "I'm a one case person, the Markel case." And
that's kind of me, but I've spread out a little bit. Yeah.
Same here. And it used to be I could only watch one at a time, but I don't watch recaps at all. I used to, and I don't watch coverage if I'm watching the trial.
Oh, interesting. You're a better person than me.
I am trying really hard to be a juror. Like if I were a juror, how would I be taking it in? So I don't.
You have 6 hours to watch.
Well, and then I don't watch, which I miss a lot because I just have it on, and I'm listening, and it's like I'm catching up all weekend. Right now because there are two really huge trials on with a lot of characters to know. Yeah.
I think there's like different degrees, right? Like there's like different degrees of sports fans. Like I could say I'm a Knicks fan. I'm more like I remember in the movie Hitch. Remember, she says to Kevin James, she's like, "Are you a Knicks fan?" He's like, "When they're good," So I'm probably more like that, like a front runner. But I have some friends who follow University of Michigan, like to the recruiting, to the coaches, to this and their loco. And then I probably agree with Helen on that.
La Bellevue is like that with college basketball.
Oh, she is interesting.
Oh my God. She is in hot and heavy. She follows stuff on Twitter and
she follows a particular team or
stuff about like, oh, check this out. There's this little war going on between these schools.
Yeah.
She knows about the coaches. She's a big
Well, I'll have to talk to her. I was definitely a big college basketball person, but I wasn't. But it's also like I have friends like they're Mets fans. They're watching preseason games or and I'm like spring training, and I'm like, make me watch that stuff. Like, do you know? Like, I don't know. Like, there's different. There are people who just. I was watching, the Knicks players, Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart, have a good podcast called Roommates, and it's very well done. And they had Ben Stiller on, and he was kind of like, if I'm on a film, I need to have it there. People talked about like Jack Nicholson with the Lakers. He needed to have like the VHS sent to them back in the day and stuff. So, but yeah, and I guess everybody has a different reason why they are, attract
to any
to
of them.
stories,
Yeah.
right? And there's something probably visceral,
I mean, I won't get into it now, but I've answered some questions to myself by doing all the videos about why I spend time doing it and what triggers me and all of that, because I think that's a lot of people are working stuff out, I think, as well, by going through some of these trials.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I remember just obviously we've done a lot with the Markel case. So, and I remember we were getting people to come on, and we'd love to have both of you guys on at some point to talk about it for sure. We've had Judy, the YouTube lawyer on, and by the way, it's funny because one time in New York, I spoke to the New York women in communication, and I said, "Thanks for having me. I love New York women. And I love to communicate." And I don't know if I could say that. I don't know if it's kind of like with Judy. I mean, I'm not Asian, but I like a legal focus or whatever. But I think, but with Judy, Asian legal focus, she's great at what she does, I think. But I remember when we'd ask different people and they had different reasons. Like Tracy Walder, for example.
I'm a fan of her.
Oh, I love her.
She was Tracy kind of like, my husband's a dentist, and we first became kind of attracted to her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or just
I didn't know her husband was a dentist.
I didn't know that. I don't remember that.
Well, I don't know if she said that on the air, but I just remember thinking hey, I'd love to have your perspective on things, and that's one of the things that we've tried to do there. And we've kind of promoted best guest, but I like to just have different perspectives on things, and you like to just, it's casting and you have different people, a different kind of reaction to it. But and I think I work, I work with just different people. I've took on a TV and I had different person, and one of them, is a very successful psychiatrist I've been working with recently, and she became very popular on social media, and she was doing a lot of things. And she said, a couple of years ago, I was going through a divorce, and it helped me to do these kind of social media kind of silly things. It helped to work with. And I feel for me, sometimes I look at my situation, and
very cathartic. No doubt.
I have a friend. Yeah. And I have a friend, I consider very bright, and he always felt, and there's 3 million podcasts out there. There's a lot of stuff vying for your attention, but he always kind of says to me, which I think about a lot. He always felt he felt something to the idea you should, be a good podcast. And he said something like an idea kind of so you think you've got problems, right? Just we look at these things. Obviously, I think sometimes there's a sense of schadenfreude. Sometimes there's wow, you want to see justice, and I think sometimes I hadn't been following Adelson, and even in preparation for today, I watched some of what you guys did, you had some of your Wendinator, your videos, or they're clever, and I like the old school kind of aspect of it, because there is a timelessness to iniquity, right? To what, but I also felt it makes you mad, you know what I mean? And you want to see these people, get justice. I mean, it's the whole they're peeing on your leg and telling you it's raining. You watch these evil people, and is that kind of how you got involved, Society Page? I mean, I know you've said it, but if you bring me back to when you first.
No, essentially, yes. The emotion was just not wanting people to get away with things. That's a bit of the driver. And I've said it before in other places, but Wendy is the one who triggers me, because
she drives me bananas.
It's what and the thing that I figured out about myself, that why I'm triggered about it, and what I've experienced in the past relationships that I didn't really realize was narcissistic tendencies. And I didn't quite understand gaslighting necessarily. I knew what it was and everything, but I didn't know I was being gaslit on things. Until later, and you're just oh crap,
and that's what attracted me, because I felt I got I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, got dragged through the ringer. But then you're kind of like, well, you at least you weren't killed. It's kind of like that Ice Cube song.
He's still alive.
Today was a good day. I didn't get shot, didn't need my AK, so that's kind of like, so my friend, he thought the idea would be like, oh, so you think you've got problems, just like an idiot perspective. And I think I hope it's not a question of superiority, like, where you look at things and you kind of feel like, like there's a degree of kind of like, of contempt is the right word, but I don't know. I
blessed a lot of the times.
What's that?
I feel blessed a lot of times knowing that it's not my life and that I've made good, obviously good choices to this point, that I'm not, going down any sort of path like what they're going down. But that's not things that happen to you in life, aside from your mom being, grooming you to be that way, I guess, right?
Yeah.
That's what I think, is that Donna really loaded them up with a lot of this, the way they behave, right? So,
but then that obviously brings you up to like, why was it Robert like that? You know what I mean? Like,
he was able to rise above and get out.
Maybe Donna couldn't handle.
He was the oldest, right?
Three people.
He
was first, right? Maybe she couldn't quite.
She was getting her. Yeah, she was weaning her skills down with the others.
She tried, right? They tried. They called him on a stage. They gave money back. They tried probably for a long time. Again, he could probably tell some pretty horrific stories, but he doesn't owe anybody.
No, I don't think he will. Yeah.
He doesn't. There's no reason for him to do it except for if he wants to go and testify, and who knows? You think he'll end up testifying at Donna's?
Oh wow. I think it'd be an overreach for the prosecution to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know enough about the law, like where somebody like Rashbaum would say, I guess they could. I mean, but it's kind of like they could subpoena him, but then they're kind of like, is that an overreach? What could he really say? They could say like what he said in the Over My Dead Body thing, like, oh, well, Dan had no shortage of enemies, she told me, and that's when they cut it off. But they're going to be like, well, how, kind of like, how much does that indicate any guilt or anything? Like what could that, maybe it could state of mind. I mean, but
I think they could use his testimony for character and for trying to point out that she has a prior pattern of this type of behavior, but it wouldn't be anything concrete in terms of the guilt or innocence of this particular.
If you were a jury member and saw.
But what I was going to say is I don't really think they need him because they have the emails she was writing about Dan Markel. I mean, and that's her own lane. Yeah. So I don't know if they really need him, but it wouldn't hurt to have some.
It wouldn't hurt, and it would probably rattle her, obviously. But maybe
called.
What's that?
Can Harvey be called?
Oh, that's a good question too.
I believe he can. Because he's a husband.
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, remember, Wendy testified against her brother. I mean, at the same case with her brother.
Right. But husband wives have a particular protection against testifying against one another.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know what it is in Florida.
But look in New Jersey, right, with Senator Menendez, who's had like
Judy
500 gold bars in his house, and he's throwing his wife under the bus, and he's pulling the bus away and then throwing her under again, and he played the fifth. Oh yeah, see, we need.
That's what I was saying. Right. Because he's the husband.
But can he? I mean, Judy.
Unless he thought, he can be called, but they wouldn't call somebody who's going to do the fifth because by law, I don't think he can be forced to testify.
But didn't they force Wendy to testify? I mean, I don't think
he might test. But this is a good point.
Yeah.
This is a good point she makes. So he would testify if he thought he could help her.
True Crime Wifey had an interesting comment here too.
Yeah.
Okay.
You find it? Yeah.
I think Robert, True
Oh,
Crime
interesting.
Wifey says, I think Robert could provide insight from Harvey's birthday celebration. I feel like he would have something like this in his family being secretive. Was he
Yeah,
at that birthday
I'm
celebration?
not sure either.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
Oops.
I think so. True Crime Wifey's always got a lot of good tidbits. She knows
yeah.
she knows the story for sure. So
I mean, we're going. Hopefully you guys can
Yeah,
come. Are you gonna come?
I
Uh,
can't. I can't because of the timing, but I will
oh
definitely be
wow,
at Wendy's.
yeah,
There will be nothing that's going to stop me from being at Wendy's
yeah.
that's the same way I feel.
if
I
I'm
plan
alive.
on this definitely. Wendy's, like Wendy's, yeah,
They're
100%.
going to have a full courtroom. It's going to be like the Murdaugh, or what was the one that had the overflow? Oh no, that was Lori Daybell. They had
Oh
two
wow.
court. Yeah, they had to have
Charlie
two.
was jealous of Wendy's trial out of that because he thought he had the Super Bowl of
Oh
I know,
wow.
Charlie.
Super Bowl, right? He said that.
Right? Yeah, yeah. You're no Super Bowl, Charlie.
And so what? So again, kudos to you, Society Page. Like how talented you are with your stuff over there, and I know like how much work it takes, and just how many edits that you have to. Oh, okay, Annie, thanks,
You
Annie.
what? Yeah. So
Yeah,
that would make it.
One of my subscribers on another live stream said it's your video games, and I was like, that's it. Like all the time that I spend doing these videos, I don't spend on video games or a lot of other things.
right.
It's like it is my video games, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that was
People ask me that too. Like,
I connected to that. So
yeah, for sure. I
So
don't
like
watch television. I don't do a lot of other things. So, yeah.
so you're probably like thinking about it a lot, right? And then you'll see something and say, "Oh, that could be something," right? Or you hear a turn of phrase. Is that what happens?
Almost constantly, yeah. Especially it was probably stronger at the beginning, but it's still like when I'm driving, I find myself drifting off. I'll hear a song or something will trigger it, and all of a sudden I'm like,
you
like
scenarios in my
what
head.
was the cake one? Like that one you did, because I wasn't that familiar with the song with the
because I heard the song again, and it just
and Fancy was very good at that, too. Yeah.
Oh, her song choices.
Yeah. And I think that I give you credit because, I think like having been in news, right? And so I might have the Natalie Holloway story, Elizabeth Smart, even the Chandra Levy story. And their families kept it in the news, right? Because next week there's a new story and what catches doesn't. And sometimes they have the resources, they have the money for lawyers. Could be that person's telegenic. It could be that person, in some cases, is blonde, blue-eyed. To people of color who don't get that kind of
exactly.
Or
college professors from Tallahassee, right? Like,
right.
That's sort of unusual as well, right?
You mean like, yeah,
to be under a spotlight for so long. I mean, I don't think the Adelsons would ever consider that being under the sort of there are multiple channels and shows and multiple social media platforms dedicated to pointing it all out. Yeah.
So.
But I think there's always like a lot of right, like reasons why. I don't know. Like I think, and you're a movie person, I'll quote William Goldman, said nobody knows anything, right? Like about Hollywood, guy who did Marathon Man, which was one of my favorite movies. I'm sure you could do stuff like that.
William Goldman's a legendary screenwriter, yes.
Right. And just like he did Princess Bride. I mean, he did a lot of stuff, but he like that, people in Hollywood, like always cite that, right? Because nobody knows anything. I mean, even in TV, I remember there was a book called Desperate Networks by Bill Carter, and he chronicled like the TV season that year. And Bill Carter also wrote about like the late night wars. And he talked about how when I want to say 1999, maybe it's 2001 or whatever, like CBS had like 3 shows and coming out, CSI, Survivor, but Les Moonves, who was really known to have a golden kind of ear or eye, he really thought The Fugitive with Tim Daly was going to be the big show. You know what I mean? And so the other one really helped bring in this whole true crime thing, with Anthony Zucker CSI franchise. The other one really helped hasten the arrival of reality shows.
You were
But
saying.
I think that, you know, it's you know, and so in any case, you know, I think that yeah, nobody knows any like I mean, certain ones you could think, like obviously OJ Simpson, right? Or other things catch fire, but you know,
Scott.
I want Scott Peterson, or yeah, if they're particularly good looking, or their people are attractive, or or there's some mystery to it that's keeping you there, or drama. I've listened to people talk about it, and
Well, the whole Gabby Petito thing, I think, was
yeah,
a really good example. Like, yeah, I mean, it's awful and all of that, but her parents, I look at that as a shining example of how, like, when someone's like that lifted up, but the parents recognized it, right? They say,
right,
like, we realize why
right.
this is in the news and we appreciate it and we're going to use it. But then they started a foundation, right? And they work on a foundation that helps other families. So,
And it's I'm going to go to Crime Con in Nashville, and there's all these people there, and I remember last year, Ethan Chapin's mother was there, and the New York Times had a critical article basically just talking about how they're kind of exploiting the family, or it, like, I always felt like you want to be useful to people, you don't want to use them, right? Like, I've tried, say, with the Markells, or I think Helen mentioned the Greenbergs, who I've gotten to know pretty well too, and I think that
need help. Yeah.
I mean, they could use, and it's also like, because people move on to the next story. Like, look at now, like a couple hours ago,
Jared Bride
Alec Baldwin, I mean, there's or P. Diddy or Sean Kingston, or, there's a lot of stories, and people have a very short attention span. And I remember, like, I don't know, like, I remember, when I was at CBS, like, one of the first big tragedies I covered was like, there was a fire in Providence at the station fire, and 96 people died. And I remember seeing some of the other producers with me, like, and I'm not too cynical, but they were hugging these, and I guess you should, but I also feel like we have a job to do, and you want to do it compassionately. And, you could belong to a soup kitchen. You could do other stuff, like, I think sometimes there's a degree of manipulation, like you're exchanging sympathy for access, and not like, unless you're, I mean, I don't know. I just remember,
I see what you're saying.
But I also feel like, I carried over 25 years of like TV, like, of having to go into places and get the story. And, I was always fairly effective at it. You had to do it in some situations that were not ideal, and you had to have some compassion. Like, I remember in 2003, I was in DC, and there was the first Marine who died in Iraq. And his dad, his dad was in Baltimore, and he was blaming Bush, and in his grief, and he was screaming about it. And then I drove to the house. I remember the mayor of Baltimore was there, and there were people there. And usually, like, you call the anchor and you say, hey, like the other shows are having Matt Lauer call, or, Diane Sawyer or something. And this anchor is like, Steve, the guy just lost his son. I'm not calling him. You know what I mean? Like it didn't mean like it what, but I was in situations where there were very high stakes. There was a degree where you could lose your humanity. Now, in this universe we're in, which is a lot of YouTubers, and yes, maybe Dateline, or Nightline, like, it's a little bit different, because Dateline or those shows, they're not doing it the next morning. It's not like they're not, because they're going to wait till it's over. They could tie everything up in a bow, and they want to have a conclusion, and they have a lot of other stuff to go for. So I've been in situations where the stakes were really, really high. They're not now. Now, when we had Dan Rashbaum on, we were going to get grief regardless. But I felt like, I mean, I mean, I felt Joel did a very, very good job, but I don't know, like you're still competitive and you still want to put good programs together. But I just come from the background, like in these kind of stories, like I was effective and maybe still am because you follow the story closely and you want to hear from different people and you kind of have persistence beats resistance and you want to get their perspective on there, even though I kind of feel like, yeah, I think the Adelsons are horrible, horrible human beings. They're awful. They're the worst of humanity. They are, regardless of how they look, what kind of background they have, how much money they have. Like they're awful, awful people. And, again, I think I brought this up last time. It made me think of, remember when Better Call Saul, where like that character was like really nerdy and Price, he was stealing pills and everything. And he says to Mike, and he goes, I'm not a bad guy. And he's like, I didn't say you're a bad guy. I said, you're a criminal, and so like, that's who they are. Right. And so,
they're bad people too, though.
Yeah. Oh, they're criminals and bad people. They're awful good people.
That's right.
No, for sure.
All of the above. All of the above.
I mean, well, the guy in Better Call Saul was this nerdy guy just selling pills. I mean, which again is not murder, but
right,
in the drug trade if you go that far. But yeah. So you, again, back to you, Society Page, TSP, if you will. So like, when did you, like, you saw the story? Were you a true crime? You obviously.
Well, I think like a lot of people, you grow up and you watch shows and, just you kind of grow up, was true crime for a long time, right? That kind of stuff. But for this case, really, it was online. It was on YouTube for sure. Except I'm trying to remember how I initially saw the first Dateline piece, whether I actually saw a broadcast of it or if it was online. So I really don't remember. But yeah, mainly it was that. And then poking around, seeing Mentor Lawyer, seeing Judy, and then Fancy. And I've said before is Fancy's the one that she got her hooks in me as far as making me really pay attention and kind of, like pulling me in and, because it's my kind of content anyway. It's what I'm going to react to is something, Radiohead song and all crazy, like this imagery and the lyrics and I'm like, I'm in, like I want to learn more about what's going on here because this person's very passionate, obviously, about this case, I don't know. Passion.
It's infectious. No, it's infectious, and like for me, I'm more appreciative. Like I'm much more like kind of just like I would see the song. It's a lot more obvious, right? Like everybody knows it's Windy or something. You know what I mean? Who's whatever that song is, but
yeah,
where it's like, and you think like, okay, fine,
it's in my head right now.
Yeah, but that's probably where I would be doing it, but I wouldn't be coming up with these emo bands or whatever and all this.
I do have to say, Hey Mona, yeah, because this is how I always think. When I see Hey Mona, it always kind of reminds me back because Hey Mona was convinced that Fancy Fiction was me. And Fancy had just started a second channel. There were a lot of people that were just convinced of that. And then it kind of turned into that I was like in a relationship with Fancy and that we knew each other and we're like this creative couple or something, And I'm just like, I've never, and I would tell people, right? It's like, I don't know Fancy. I've never met Fancy,
Yeah.
I've emailed or I've messaged with Fancy. That's about it. She's promoted me. I will say, Fancy is the reason the Society Page exists. I wouldn't exist without seeing her content. It just wouldn't have happened.
Right. Yeah.
No, and I give her, Judy, Don, everybody, like I thought, has a place in this ecosystem. I should give a shout out to Katie Kool-Lady. I mean, and Mentor Lawyer. Yeah. I mean, Judy just said like he was the one who had like the when the interrogation tapes or a lot of that stuff. And I think she's taking a side. You know, you're seeing now, like, maybe we could segue to the Karen Reed story, like, because I have friends who like will text me about that. Obviously, Turtle Boy is somebody who has gotten very, very involved with it. I'm not sure I agree with him. You know, I find it hard to believe it, but it's also like you keep saying it. You just keep saying it and saying it and saying it, and people want to believe it, you know, or they have their biases and prejudices. And, you know, but he's entertaining. People talk about how there's a lesson taught with you, like Judge Dr. Ruth would say, like, oh, a lesson taught with humor is a lesson learned. And so I see, like, he's funny, Turtle Boy. Alex Jones could be funny, you know. I mean, a much more insidious person. And I feel like with Turtle Boy, God bless him, like when you have that much smoke, there's fire. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's more than just
look at his behavior. Like, look
right.
at his antics. And do you
Yeah.
take? I don't take him seriously. He's not a journalist either.
Right.
Blogger. He's I call him an idiot blogger. That's my title for him.
Yeah.
I have nothing for him. Zero. I think he's a troll. I think he's dangerous. And I think he's led a lot of people down a path. I mean, I don't know if Karen Reed's innocent or not, but man, I mean, I'll say for me, I don't believe like every witness is bad.
Yeah.
That's certainly what Alan Jackson tears into everyone. Then you go into a Karen Reed friendly chat and everyone just hates every witness.
Yeah.
Like,
and I
person in the entire world. It's like, and Karen Reed's innocent, you know, like going like, this is like just weird.
And it doesn't matter though. I think after a while though, it's kind of like, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? Right. Like after a while, like
with the jury, yeah, I imagine what they're thinking, right? I mean, I don't know. I wish I knew.
I mean, but
right,
yeah, and again, yeah, you're right, but I appreciate people who take a stand and say,
no doubt about it. But what he did is
no,
he went to soccer games and started yelling "murderer" at people.
Yeah.
No idea anything about them. He has created a hellish life that all these Karen Reed supporters, if any one of them had this kind of hell put toward them, would be crying their little eyes out. And that's what pisses me off the most about it, is that they act like one way. Well, if you would want this kind of defense, and I was like, but on the flip side, I also want a prosecutor really fighting for, you know, a person who's dead now. So don't give me this like, I can't afford. I would never be able to afford Alan Jackson anyway. So,
right. And didn't he do the fundraising for her attorney fees?
I mean, like Turtle Boy, yeah.
Some of it, there's some popcorn outside, and it's just a circus.
Yeah.
And
I have no idea who to believe on. Yeah, Carla wants us to talk about Karen Reed. There is so much to say. My goodness, but I don't. I'm the same. I have no idea what's going on. It's just, and I will say some of the witnesses, I definitely know that I wouldn't associate or want to be friends with most of these people. Like they're not people. They're not my kind of people. But that doesn't make them innocent or guilty or anything like that. But it is fishy. I will say, some of them are coming across like, if they really aren't, why are they coming across so poorly? What are they hiding? You know, they're coming across in a way that I don't think is helping, is actually helping Karen.
That's weird too. It really is.
So weird. Like, why are they fighting every single, just answer the question. The question. Like,
now the guy, because I did see a follow up on, I'm not
Brian Higgins. With the
I appreciate it, because what I think he was standing up for was all of her gaslighting in those emails, and trying to lead him down a path. That's what it seems like to me, that she was trying to get him in a certain position and say certain things in the text, and because she wanted to use it against him somehow. That's what
it also shows you. and probably shame on me for listening to him, but like Turtle Boy has been doing like local Boston radio, and he was saying this Brian Higgins is looking a gift horse in the mouth. He can't close. You have this attractive woman saying, "You're hot." Wait a minute, is this what are you serious? And she was probably, like he later learned, it was bad news, and was trying to weaponize him and trying to hurt him by getting one of his friends to flip on her. But
wouldn't give him a straight answer in those emails. He trying to drill down and ask her questions, and she would not give him a straight answer. So
right.
Yeah,
she was definitely playing him. But boy, those texts were like, dude, like he should have given up like 10, 15, 20 texts ago. Like, just the whole thing.
Well, I feel like
kind of sickening.
Not like I'm a Don Juan, but I feel like it just depends on what he was looking to do. Now, Turtle Boy's perspective was like, here you have this beautiful woman after you, and you're not kind of responding to it. I might look at it like there's no right way to do the wrong thing. You can't try and make time with your friends, girlfriend, even after it's, I mean, I've been in those situations. You're just kind of like, no, right. Like that's what you're talking about, Don. Like it's a non-starter. This is your friend's live-in girlfriend or whatever. You're not going to do it,
Yeah.
But
I think he was probably a little bit more, because didn't he, like their whole little interaction when she was weed whacking and all that? It's like, I don't know. No one's ever as innocent as they're trying to make themselves out to be. Yeah.
I'm sure he was tempted. I'm sure he said, he acknowledged in those texts, like, and it was probably embarrassing for him, like that he was attracted to her. And he, like today, Turtle Boy and Howie Carr, like, were kind of like, when was this guy ever called hot in his entire life? So, so it's kind of like,
I didn't want to say it.
Right. But again, beauty's in the eye of the beer holder. And so, no, but I mean, each his or her own. But I think that, I mean, look, I think something happened, obviously. I kind of feel like she probably hit him, or they probably had a fight. She was very volatile, whether or not it should be manslaughter, whether it was intentional, whether she was like the menorah, probably driving that car. She probably was hammered, and
all of them were.
And I agree
That's
with
frightening
you
in itself, right?
Like, but I don't know. I still, and then I've watched some of this. I've watched some of these. By the way, it's funny. Like Judy just said, "Oh, there's your cat." Well,
Karen,
hi. How did you have the cat in the playing the piano? Where'd you get that from?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
You had the cat in one of the videos playing the piano.
Oh yeah, that's Keyboard Cat.
He's
pretty famous. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We all know these cats.
Oh, you really do? That's so funny.
I mean, famous, but I didn't make it. He's been around for years, right?
Oh, wow. That's so funny.
So,
I watch cats every day, I think, playing the piano, different ones.
Oh, seriously? Wow.
Oh, really?
Well, that's really the advent of YouTube, right? Like when that was what they were known for, right? Like it helped launch it. People just talk about funny animal videos. Or,
the cats were great. Granny Juju says, I like watching birds on YouTube live cams. It's real. And I play YouTube, but not that she needs it, because we have birds. Like, anyway, I was just playing like a mouse video for my cat on the computer.
Oh, that's so funny.
I know.
And I just saw her comment. Hi, Fancy.
Okay.
I keep missing Fancy.
Hi, everybody else. I'm not just singling out Fancy.
Okay, so let me go back. I had a couple more. So Hey Mona had asked, this is a fun one. Does the society TSP, have you ever gotten tired of everyone telling you the ideas you want to see?
That is why I created the Creator Collab project.
Ah.
because people kept telling you all this and that, and I was like, all right, we're gonna formalize this. You guys, if you want to see your idea, you're gonna pitch it to. We're gonna
There you
formalize
go.
this thing,
Yeah.
create it, and yeah. So yeah, we're working on the one right now, the first winner of it, and the second one is the idea is already there. It was one of the submissions that I couldn't decide between the two, and so I decided one, and then was like, let's do this other one as well. So, but
that's fun.
that hasn't started yet. Yeah, it keeps me busy, and I get to interact with with people, and
I
love
have to jump in on that. That sounds fun.
You should. You really should.
I will. Okay, and then Judy brought up about Donna's trial possibly being postponed. Do we have news that we missed? Does anyone know? Judy, is there news about this? Or is it just a general question or statement? I'm sorry, because the comments are going pretty fast, so I didn't get the context, and it was a while ago. And I'm like, is there news here? What do we need to know? No news. Don't be alarmed. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I started looking around going like, what's going on?
I remember Judge Everett saying, I'm not messing around with these dates, in so many words. Like, this is going to, he did change it once for the Jewish holiday, but which you would think they would have known in advance. But other than that, I don't think he's willing to change the date.
Hopefully
There's
not.
like have to be something super. I got the impression he was not playing around with that because they picked it. No, he didn't pick it and say, here's the date. They are like, this is what we want. So she wanted a quick trial. He's going to make her stick to it. Yeah.
The way my brain works. We were talking about the famous people stories, and Matt Lauer was mentioned earlier.
Oh yeah.
I think you guys know the at Lake Tahoe every year. There's the big
that's the Trump and Stormy Daniels.
Was it at that golf tournament? Yeah. So I went there a couple years back. It was like around in the late 90s. I did photography there.
Oh, wow.
Got to see a bunch of stuff. And my one funny story is that I was behind a tee box shooting, and I can't remember who it was before this person, but I accidentally fired during their backswing. It's just this.
Wow.
It's not a huge. Wow. It's not doing it to Tiger Woods or something, right? It was just like So Matt Lauer walks up and just looks at me very sternly. He goes, "You're not going to do that to me, are you?"
Wow. Well, during like the Clinton Foundation, I think I brought this up last time. We were at Clinton's house in Chappaqua, and he was supposed to go on at like 7:10, and he kept being on at CNBC with like his chief of staff or whatever. I mean, his former chief of staff. I'm having trouble remembering his name, but like I think CNBC brought him there just so he could interview him during it. And so I'm saying, I know. I'm telling him, I'm playing the music. I can't get him to dance, like because they were like, on TV of these hard hits, and the control room is yelling at me, and then Bill Clinton was kind of like, hey. Like he was like, keep it down, like and then it felt bad, but I was like I had a lot of like pressure on me, like because like if you miss it and you got to go to commercial break, it's like everybody like they blew like CNBC or the other networks went late, and but that was I've gotten yelled at by plenty of people.
Yeah, but the president.
Well, network TV, I can only imagine. I mean, yeah, people, and then they apologize later, maybe. Right?
He felt bad, and but it was, I mean, like they were blaming me. You know what I mean? And I'm like, you tell Bill Clinton to stop talking to CNBC. What do you want me to do? Like dive in the middle of their interview?
Right.
So. But I don't know if I told this story, but
wrap it up.
When I was at CBS, we were covering like the Howard Stern like fight with like Conan O'Brien and with Jay Leno, and so we interviewed Howard Stern. So we went over to Sirius Radio, and it was like 5 or 6 in the morning, and so he called me in to the studio, and And I felt like you have to do it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not incredibly introverted, but, and so and I'm lucky I didn't get in trouble because I kind of just tried to deflect him. He was saying, look at you, handsome guy. How come you're still single? You know, and he had all these jokes and he kept like pushing it on you. But he would say, hot women at CBS. And I said, personally, I don't fish off the company pier. Like, I tried to just, be close enough to be warm, not too close to get burned.
Is this on air?
Oh, go
I
eight,
know,
nine. There's 8 and 9 right there, guys. If you're
I
still
was on
counting.
I was on for like a half hour. I felt like I was riding the bull. And then when we got back to CBS, all the executives were there and they were like, you're lucky because, if I don't know, like he doesn't do a lot of interviews. I felt like we had to be good sports and you have to go on. There was a female producer with me. And if she went on, like, I'm not, and you just try and like leaven it with humor, but you also recognize how masterful of an interviewer he is. Now
He's amazing.
Has he
But
softened?
he doesn't leave his house now, right?
I mean,
I don't think he does. I think he.
Oh, interesting.
His guests go into.
Oh, interesting. I mean,
if he's at home and they have a big screen where they just talk to the screen.
It's only recently like I started, like I had Sirius, but I didn't have Howard.
I just learned this the other day. I heard
but I feel like people are upset with him because he had what was perceived to be an obsequious interview with Joe Biden. And they're like, is this? And he's mellowed. I mean, like, people have just eviscerated him saying, you really like Ellen DeGeneres' dancing? Like, where, you know what I mean? Or like, and I think some of it is he's changed with age. He's mellowed. Maybe his wife had an influence on him, and maybe we all should change, right? Like, it's kind of like the George Bernard Shaw thing who said, hey, the only person who behaves sensibly is my tailor. He remeasures me every time he sees me. So we can grow and we could change and do things. But getting back to that situation, that was very memorable in that I fancy is that that he I thought he was masterful. I think, like, I remember when different people have gone on. I wasn't working with Joel when that happened.
Sorry. Okay.
But I was in. I remember I was in. It was a Saturday, and I was working CBS early show, and I remember I was doing that story remotely. You know what I mean? Like, we were working. Like, there had to be like one producer on call at CBS. It was a Saturday, and I was calling different people, and I remember working on it that day. And I remember she happens to be Jewish. I remember calling like the rabbi over the, you try and get bookings right when that happens, or one of her staffers, and like, there was an adrenaline with breaking news. I mean, and the best people were like, okay, we're going to get after it. We're going to focus and be ready to get after it. I mean, even though they're often tragic situations, but you kind of have to just, like, I'll tell you, I remember in 1999, I was in radio, and I was a friend of mine named Tim Sheld had been a big reporter, and then he went on to be like a news director in radio. But I got into ABC, and I had more of like a management role. And like, JFK Jr. died in July of 1999, and I remember he was just like, you think I'm kidding? We need a freaking hotel in, you know what I'm saying, in that area. I forget, it might have been Hyannisport or whatever it was. And like, those were the kind of details. Or I remember, I think I had just started at ABC Radio when Columbine happened, and so, and I, but, and I obviously remember 9/11, obviously, because I was working at ABC Radio, and I thought when the first plane hit, I wasn't sure, you know what I mean? Like, if it was then the second one. But I remember in February of that year, I was at a conference at Chicago Tribune, has the McCormick Foundation, and they had all these like bigwigs in terrorism. And I remember at the time, you're thinking like, really, I need to know about, NBC, nuclear, biological, chemical terrorism, and all. But all those people were there. Like, there was a guy, Jerry Hauer, who ran emergency management for New York City, and he was lecturing. So I had all their numbers on my phone. I don't know, and we just kind of did that. But I feel like, yeah, I mean, it's, but True Crime Life asked about the Gabby Giffords. Yeah, Joel did really exemplary work. And I think some of these people make their reputations on these stories, but it's not just because they're in their backyard. Like I remember at CBS, everybody always extolled the virtues of like Charles Kuralt, right? And Kuralt would go into different cities, and they said like he'd go into small towns and he'd find stories that obviously the local people did it, right? And or obviously Steve Hartman does great work too, with Everybody Has a Story.
Let me say real quick while you're talking about CBS shows. The show that I don't watch a lot of network TV anymore, just by it's just how it's trending, especially with YouTube and all. But
yeah,
the CBS, is it called CBS Sunday Morning?
Yeah, it's a great show.
That is just one of the best produced shows I think I've ever seen on television. It's terrific. An amazing show.
Yeah.
There's a heart to it. There's a tone. There's just everything about that show. It's very comfortable and it just feels nice to sit and watch. I just love that show.
Yeah. No,
I don't catch anything anymore. I'm just like completely tuned out of anything. I used to at least watch news program like that, but I don't know. I guess I have to get back into the world. I think I've been hiding under a rock.
I see YouTube clips of different shows that are on.
Right.
TV.
Exactly. Right. That's it. And podcasts, because they all podcast now too. So
yes. Everyone, like one of the most famous podcasts is the Smartless, right?
Just about to say that.
Yeah. So I'm a Unicorn said also anthrax happened shortly after 9/11. Do you remember that, Steve?
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, I remember, it's funny. Like I hadn't thought about it, but I remember like there were a couple times at CBS, people were concerned about powder coming in.
Yeah.
And I think we cleared the building. I think we saw it at ABC, remember Governor Pataki had to deal with it at one point. They came into his area over there. Yeah, I remember it was a scary time.
Yeah, it was really weird. I kind of forgot about the whole anthrax thing. When I was young, there was the whole Tylenol thing where people were putting, what was it, cyanide or something like that in Tylenol in Chicago. And I lived real near Chicago. And I don't know if it ended up becoming a national thing or not.
It was. Like, did it spread?
I don't remember.
I think people always use that like as a case study in how they did damage control and handled.
Yeah.
That like, you're Wisconsinite and look at. Well, I was thinking of beer, but Budweiser's like St. Louis, right? But Budweiser still hasn't recovered from, having that spokesperson, Dylan Mulvaney. Like, and it's something that Jared Ross, like we discussed, because he handles like the beer lobby, but like,
right. Remember how he does the beer. I knew he was a lobbyist. I didn't know it was beer.
I think it's like alcohol. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Carlos, he's getting feisty on me here.
Your kitty or your doggy?
Yeah, kitty. He just needs a treat.
Oh.
Otherwise, we're going to hear him meowing in the background. So.
I think I have the best cat in the world. She is so polite when I'm sleeping or when I'm doing things. She just waits. She really is amazing. I don't know.
I get a claw in the face every morning about 5 a.m.
I always think of look, you guys should have a cat off you and cross my back.
Your cat doesn't do that, right? Your cat leaves you alone. Is that what you said?
She's always right there, but she's very nice about it. She never wakes me up. And I have it hangs from the ceiling. I call it her bungalow. It's a 2-story bungalow. And she can jump in there. And so she sleeps in there. So she's not on me, like bugging. And once in a while, she'll get on me, in the morning or whatever, but I don't even know she's there. I just sleep through it. But, no, because I have friends that their cats are like at 4 a.m. and this one, even when she was a little, I got her, she was less than 2 pounds when I got her. She was so small. She would just wait for me to wake up. I'd wake up and there'd be this little kitten just looking at me. And she's never been, very rarely is she, I, I don't think she's ever woken me up once.
Oh,
I wouldn't be able to handle it. I think she knows, I think she just knows the kind of person I am. It's like,
it's
that's not going to happen.
it's the reason I'm an early riser now, just because
Mhm.
it starts meowing, and if I don't pay attention, it's boom right in the face with a paw.
That would not be good. I built her a like customized patio on the balcony, and I can leave it open. So
Oh, that's nice.
I don't ever, I mean, it's California, so I pretty much never have to close the window. So she can
Yeah.
go out there too, but she doesn't even do that hardly. But sometimes I'll see her out there in the middle of the night. I'll pick her up on the camera or whatever. She's like out there, like 7 feet up in the air, looking out the neighborhood. But yeah, she
That's
doesn't
cool.
bug me. Yeah. Yeah, I'm very lucky that way. I don't know how.
How
Yeah.
do you pronounce your cat's name again? Tasha's?
It's Tosh, and it's
Tosh.
French. It means like the word mustache. It's the second part of stuff, and
Oh,
that word means spot. And it's kind of like it came into the vocabulary, in the French vocabulary, as a joke, because it's like adolescent boys would get the spot, and they would call that, yeah. And so Tosh also is used in other, but that's the easiest way to remember. It's the second part of mustache.
yeah. Yeah, because whenever I see it spelled, for some reason, I want to make it like a hard C or
Yes,
something.
it's
Yeah.
hard. Yeah, and a lot of people call her Tasha, which is fine. I don't care, but I don't think she would know. She knows when I'm calling her, and that's the other thing. If I call her name, she comes, even if she's sleeping. She comes running out like a little dog, like
Wow.
chatting at me. She's very different. Yeah.
My cat
As,
knows the word treats. Definitely because he like will look at me, and but I can pound on the floor if he's in another part of the house and he comes just sprinting at me, which
yeah,
it's hilarious.
it is funny when they run. Yeah, but she does a little meow as she runs, and then it changes when she hits the floor. Anyone on Instagram should be following Tosh. I can put the link in. I have her whole story, her whole journey from when she
Do you have
was
any
found in a.
questions? I feel like you want to look at chat. Are there any questions out there?
Yes. So,
Sorry.
nope. Any further questions, chatters? Or let me see if I go up. I'm looking for question marks. It's hard to keep up with the chat.
Yes.
Oh, Tennis Girl said I only watch CBS mornings. Oh, she's wanting to know CBS Sunday is Sundays, right?
Yeah. What is it like?
Sunday morning.
7:30 or probably 7:30 when
Mm-hmm.
it airs. I don't even I haven't seen it.
It's 9 to 10:30.
Oh, is it? Okay.
They do local. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shooty, come to California. That'd be great. Okay. Oh, okay. This is interesting. And Mona says the Tylenol incident is why we can't open meds and mouthwash anymore, right? Yeah, everything's so hard to open. It's like you need 5 minutes just to open a new bottle of something.
You know what I kind of remember from the Tylenol thing, just maybe it was my thinking, was that, how you we all grew up with all the rumors of razor blades and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
In candy, which was never true, right? That was all pretty much just urban myth stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of remember when the Tylenol thing happened, at first didn't it seem like it was a little sketchy or questionable or something behind it, and then it kept happening, right?
Yeah, it kept happening.
Yeah.
When you said urban myth, I have a funny story to tell you, because so remember like the Mikey commercials, like the Life commercials, Mikey likes it and everything, and remember like cereal had like these commercials with this cute kid named Mikey, and he didn't eat anything, but then he ate the cereal.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, and there were all these rumors, and he's a real person. His name is John Gilchrist, and he worked with me at CBS Radio, and he would always kind of like make fun of me or joke around with me. But like the urban myth about him was that he ate Pop Rocks and soda and died. And I just remember brought in Pop Rocks and soda. I was like, John, have some, and but it was just funny, like that he was a real person, when you said urban myths. But yeah, I mean, the news is different these days, obviously. And I feel like for all of us, I give you guys credit, like, or me, like we've had to learn how, like, successful people embrace change. It's something I've talked to Joel about a lot. It's like, okay, it's the Steve Jobs line. Do you want to be part of the Navy, or do you want to be a pirate? You want to do different things, like,
Right.
And you have to figure out how do you adjust and adapt and get these skills to do it. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, there were only, oh, that's funny. Skeeter Girl picking up what
I was trying to remember it too. She's got it now.
okay. That was a big urban myth. Like,
Hey, Mikey, he hates everything.
Right.
I just know the voice and everything.
Right. So that person is like, I don't know. He's probably 60 now, maybe. But
when we were kids, somehow urban myths about everybody knew, without the internet or anything, knew urban myths. I'm not going to say the whole thing. It's about Richard Gere and Rod Stewart, right? We all knew.
Oh, gerbil. Yeah.
Yeah, but those were, you could go across the country in the 70s or whenever, and it seemed like everybody knew this urban myth.
Yeah.
How did it spread like that? It's like, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know or anything,
but I think it's, look, in some ways the world's smaller, right? It's and this is like
this detriment sometimes, right?
Well, it was even like, I mean, I think as you get older, like it seems smaller. But I remember like a couple months ago, I was in Cleveland, and I don't know, like, I think when you're younger, you think like from New York to Ohio is far, right? Or whatever it is. Like, and I was talking, like, and it was interesting on a few levels, because like you talk about like my Lyft driver, I was just saying, like, I like the Midwest. I like it here in Cleveland. It's nicer than I thought it was. Obviously, I'd gone to school in the Midwest, so I have affection for it, or whatever it is. And then he told me, I'm from here, but I went to school in the East. I was a basketball player. And this guy, it was very interesting, played at St. Joseph's. He was a star basketball player. He was the number 3 scorer of all time. I know we'll have to ask La Belle V, but like that's the same school that had Jameer Nelson, Delonte West. Like, they had some talented people. And it was just, so I thought it was interesting on a few levels. Like, you don't know who that person is, the same way in true crime stories, you don't realize who the people are that are touched by these stories. Alan Greenberg's uncle lives right next door to my parents in Florida.
Wow.
So we were dealing with Sandy Greenberg, and she's like, do you live at so-and-so? You live right next to my brother. So I see him all the time, and he's living with this, and she is, and then you have the double indignity of it, like not getting any closure, and have people telling you it's a suicide, when nobody's going to stab themselves 20 times. I'm sorry, and I think the nice thing about this is getting to know you guys, or everybody in kind of like our ecosystem, and people with similar interests. But like, even in pursuing like stories, like we were covering the autistic kid in Nashville who went missing.
Oh, yes.
And so then the other day I connected with this woman, Sheila Wysocki, who is a private investigator. And she had a very interesting story. Like, it was her college roommate at SMU was murdered, and she solved it. And then she's since solved 100, cold case murders. And I feel like the heroes are, and the hero is an ordinary person placed in an extraordinary situation, right? Like, hey Mona, I don't miss news actually. Oh, do I miss news actually being news? I feel like no. I feel like again, like you have to kind of, it's funny. Like I remember one of the better lines in The Sopranos. One time when they were like trying to show the underbelly of the mob, right? And Tony Soprano says, "You know what the lowest form of conversation is? Nostalgia, or whatever it
Oh,
is." And I feel like, do I miss news actually being news? I don't know if it ever really was news. Like the 60 Minutes people lamented, like Don Hewitt, who created 60 Minutes, and Mike Wall, like those guys,
Or
like
the Walter Cronkite era, or
yeah. Well, Cronkite, but even Edward R. Murrow did a celebrity show called See It Now. And, like he did like a kind of puff celebrity kind of thing, which, in George Clooney's movie, like he kind of downplayed. I think Cronkite, I mean, the thing about Cronkite, I think, is he retired at 65 and he had a lot of gas left in the tank, and you saw like Dan Rather still going at like 85, 88, whatever,
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think Cronkite's talent was cut off too soon and he kind of was forced out. And I think he was embittered by it. But like there's expression about news, like news is, news is when somebody's trying to hide something. Everything else is just advertising. Do I miss it? I mean, I think I miss like maybe like trust, like what I'm saying, like you don't know, you know what you could really trust. People watching is more for affirmation than information. They're going to see what they want to see, and I don't know how you could repair that. But the problem is, like the 60 Minutes folks lamented it. They feel like they opened up a Pandora's box. Like once TV news used to be like a public service, right? And it
yeah,
was kind of like, oh, we're doing this, we're covering this. And then once you realize, like, you can make it entertaining, you can make it exciting, or Fox took it up a notch. And obviously, most of a great majority of the people are attractive and
have advertisers who want
they
to
advertise. Yep.
have what? I'm sorry.
or have advertisers that want, that
Yeah.
have certain, demands for being advertisers.
Oh, interesting. Well, that was kind of like, right. Remember the movie The Insider with Russell Crowe about Jeffrey Rodriguez? I mean, and I don't know. I think like, I don't know if it ever was really new. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like where the good old days always a good old day. Like,
well, you weren't here. I don't think you were here at the beginning when I said I was trained when I went to school by a bunch of Stanford documentary grads.
Oh, wow.
And early on, and it was the head of the department, where the film department, who just in his classes would always be like, everything's propaganda. Everything you put out is propaganda. He goes like, because it's your point of view and you can call it what you want. It's propaganda. You come right down to it, because you're trying to make somebody see something in a certain way, whether you're conscious of it or not. That's what you're doing, right? So,
I mean, I've seen that more, in that for sure, right? I mean, I think that, I like, remember there was like the Making a Murder documentary about the Stephen Avery case. And then Sean Reck, who did a bunch of good documentaries, he did, and that is in your backyard, Don, like Making a Murder with that case. They did a rebuttal called Convicting a Murderer. And they were showing like those people left out a lot of stuff. They wanted to see it a certain way. And like and those people, like the Innocent Project never really had a strong rebuttal to it. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think some of it is like with a lot of these stories. And I remember in news, whether it's Pat Tillman, whether it's Jessica Lynch. I mean, unfortunately, like they both probably were killed, like friendly fire or whatever it was. Right. You don't want to believe that. And, and so, yeah, I mean, and you're right, like with documentaries and I looked at, like, I'm a sports fan. So I remember watching, like they had one in the University of Florida when Urban Meyer was there, and it seemed to soft pedal a lot of the crimes that they had there, or the Aaron Hernandez stuff, and even the Johnny Manziel one, or where you see a lot of them. And it's also because people now trade access for kind of objectivity. I mean, even The Last Dance, Michael Jordan had final say on it, and you saw ultimately like those other people had their issues with it. But
so do you remember the documentary Thin Blue Line?
Yeah, Errol Morris. Yeah.
Errol Morris, yeah. So what the heat that he got for that, and the reason he didn't get an Academy Award nomination for it, was because he had recreated scenes, right, in a documentary, and that sent
interesting.
That sent the documentary community kind of in a tailspin at the time. And now the more that I've done a little research now, and that whole turning over of that case in there is under complete scrutiny.
Oh, wow.
Just like Making a Murderer, just like a man, just like all of these people, and they're trying with Scott Peterson now, right?
Yeah.
And I share some of Roberta Glass's kind of skepticism, towards the Innocent Project. And, I'm sure some of it's like follow the money, right? Like with it. Yeah, I mean, for sure.
Okay, I have a couple questions.
The Josh Dubin one, the whole thing.
That was.
And then the guy ended up, right? And he killed
someone. Yeah. That guy wound up like decapitating or something like that. And
our old Josh Dubin.
Yeah.
See, that's why I know Roberta's definitely got got me a little more focused on, because I, like a lot of people, just thought, Innocence Project, they're probably just doing really great work, but you got to look at things.
Right.
Yeah. And I feel like I worked with, after I left TV, my first kind of gig was with a guy named James Altucher, who's really bright, and who's like, big podcaster, author, and just one of the smarter people I've been around. And he influenced me because he would always say like there's the reason you give and the real reason. And he would say, like, my daughter says she wants to go to the library to study, but the real reason is there are boys there. And it's like, there's a lot of those things there, right? Where it's like, I really want to make impact. No, you want to make money. Like you want the attention. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I feel like there's a gulf between what people say and what they do, and I wasn't as, kind of malicious or whatever towards, like, I give, Kathy credit, or Fancy, for just calling it like they see it, calling balls and strikes. In their case, they think Rashbaum wasn't a good lawyer, or they were calling him Cashbaum, or whatever it is. I mean, I don't know. Like it's like, I think most people would take the job. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. We all have a line that we might not cross. You know what I mean?
I had an analogy the other day to when I was watching Katie Kool-Lady watching Charlie's Testimony, and we were just looking at Georgia, and you could see Charlie and Jane Rashbaum in the background, and some of the looks on his faces as she was just making her points and everything. Oh, wow. And my comment was, it's like, his face looks like I relate to his face right now, because I've taken jobs that paid really well.
Oh, interesting.
But I hated being there.
Oh, wow.
Being there, but it was good money, and I knew I was going to want it, but it was painful. But then I think maybe it was even Hamona who came back and said something like, yeah, but he took the other case. And I was like, you know what? I took another job with that same client, because they were saying,
like, fool me once, fool me shame on me, right? And I mean, shame on you.
Right? I mean, you follow. Also, I was following the money.
Well, but they are defense attorneys too, and people inherently don't love defense attorneys because they're representing.
From what I know, I'm not any legal expert, but I keep hearing that he was just a fish out of water as well. He didn't.
He was. It seemed like
it's like that.
Yeah, he was.
Nothing against him. It's just that's kind of that's not background.
Right. So I have queued up a few questions. that
No,
people
we have
are
to get some Jane's World questions in.
exactly. I couldn't find her. So Jane's World. TSP, how did you make the intro using Charlie voice? Was that an AI program? Is that built into Final Cut, or did you have to use
Yeah, it wasn't AI. No, it's a website.
Okay.
I'm pulling it up right now. I'm going between two
Yeah,
monitors.
that was nice. I need to do that.
It's called play.ht.
Play.ht. I'm going to put it in the chat here. Play.ht. Okay.
And then I took 30 seconds of Charlie's testimony,
Yep.
fed it into that engine, and you get
Right.
free. You get to create in that site. You get to create one free character, and then they want money.
Oh, cool. So,
I heard TSP. You took Scarlett Johansson's voice
do you
without her permission.
do you
Did
type
that
in
story?
what you? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Scarlett Johansson was upset with AI. They asked her to use her voice, and then apparently they took it anyway without her consent.
That's right.
I think she wants to sue them.
That's what's going to happen with.
Yeah, I
put
disclaimers in my
disclaimers.
stuff early,
Yeah.
and saying like, "Hey, this isn't real."
Yeah. So did you type in what you wanted him to say, or did you actually say it and then it used his words?
Oh, well, okay, yeah, I'll talk a little bit more. So then there's an entry box, a text box where you can put in a whole paragraph and it'll say it, but it'll be weird if you put in a whole paragraph.
Right.
What I found was having to put in because I don't learn sentences at a time. Sometimes I do parts of sentences or break it up in different ways because you get different inflections. He says things in a different way. The creepiest one is, and if you ever hear I have one of Charlie saying, hey, hillbillies, you're listening to the society, or you're watching the society page. And then he laughs. But the laugh came from after a while I had been putting in little text strings, and I put one in, and I didn't write ha ha or anything, but it spit out the text. And then at the end, it put in that Charlie giggle, and it sounds like him laughing. And I was creeped out by it.
Oh my God, that's weird.
I use it now. It's like this little Charlie giggle I have, and it sounds like him, and it's just the craziest thing. So
that's wild. Yeah. So the artificial intelligence, as you called engine, it will learn their will learn their voice basically, and then it will apply other words to
just based on that 30-second clip. Which makes, if you wanted to try Donna or something, it would be difficult because think of all the recordings we have of her voice versus like Charlie talking on the stand in a very clear. And the AI works for Charlie because he's very monotone on the stand too. He doesn't have right, so that added to something like him.
And he sounded so weird and like
robotic,
cloudy. He sounded so odd. He sounded in a way that, as a juror, I would be like, I don't like this guy. I just don't like this voice.
It's like we know he wasn't on any drugs, right? But it seemed like he was. Something was finding him.
Cottony. Yeah, like cottony. Something was weird.
Yeah.
Okay. Judy's asking, whatever happened to Cliff? I haven't heard from Cliff in a while. I hope he's okay. I can email him. I was just thinking about Cliff. And do I get hate mail? I don't get hate mail. Lost some subscribers, but say lovey. That's their problem. Their loss. Okay.
I've recently because of Karen Reed. So,
Steve, does anyone in your family follow the Markel case along with you? And if so, what do they think about it?
It's a good question. I mean, really, I feel like I'm in Florida a lot, and and so my dad and my sisters know we're working a lot with Joel and Carm, so they're into it, but they're not as into it as my dad has spoken to Ruth, as parents, and he's empathetic towards her, and but I don't. I have a few friends who are particularly into it. I have one friend who's like into true crime, and he's texting me even about, about Karen Reed. He kind of believes Turtle Boy. And I was like, I don't know, and, and so I'm like, I don't know, dude, like, just dig deeper, like, but yeah, I think like we've all talked about how like we haven't had people to kind of amplify our interest in it, right? I've heard Fancy talk about that. Like, do you guys have family members or friends into it? I've tried like with a bunch of different friends. Like I've tried, using whatever hook I can get. Like, hey,
yeah,
and to my friends, like, Dan's just a few years younger than us, or you went to Harvard with him, or I think you would have known so and so.
Right.
And nope.
No, I mean, my family doesn't even watch my YouTube channel.
When the shower didn't take, like it just didn't take for the,
yeah, my brother and his wife kind of look in on it occasionally, but only because I'm into it, right? And they some of my stuff. I know my brother watches my videos and stuff occasionally. I don't know if he sees all of it or not, but
I think it's not. It's just true crime or whatever. It's just not for everybody, and I don't know, and I'm not. I think it's like anything else. Like it may not be that healthy for people to be that into it, right?
You have to watch that, I think, because I find myself like all of a sudden I'm like, oh boy, I need to back off.
Like like I want to say, I think it was, hey, Mona asked a question about news, and I remember one time when I was at CBS, like Tucker Carlson wrote his book, and this was before he
right,
and I like. And he had an epigraph to the book, with a quote from Larry King. And he said, the secret is to care, but not care too much, to give a shit, but not really. And then he, and I think that's, I don't know, I think in life, we all run into problems when there's too much emotion, right? Like, and so, but I don't know, like I give credit to, I really do, because it emboldens other people when you're like, look at this freaking Tova, or look at these people. Forget about like, that doctor, who may not have all his marbles, like who's, is it Graber, and I, like who's the one who like
the Donna's boyfriend.
And consequential. But I feel like, look, in fact, we all know people who fall aside from the law, right? And I feel like with me and my friends or people like that, it's the old kind of like, you take people, warts and all, but if it's like a cancer, you got to do a biopsy. You got to just be like, that's it. Like, our families had people who crossed the law or did things they shouldn't have done. And you know what? That disqualifies you from it, for me, and I grapple with it. I've had people like who got involved in the wrong side of the law. In the words of the Clash, they fought the law and the law won. But it's like, you have to kind of know right from wrong. And if you're kind to the cruel, you're cruel to the kind. And so I give people credit, for standing up and doing it. The problem is, I guess, like anything else, it could be abused. And it's like, and it's happened. I mean, like Turtle Boy came on, and Turtle Boy will say, like, one of, Karen, people who feel like Karen Reed is guilty is Wendy Murphy. And like one time she came on with Turtle Boy and it was devolved.
Yeah.
And at other times Turtle Boy said, well, Wendy Murphy was wrong about Duke lacrosse, or whatever. And there are instances where people are wrong. And I remember like Jeff Daniels did that movie in Chicago where he played like a stand and deliver type teacher, and he basically, what? Because we're in the one case, it was like, you don't think Hispanic students could really excel in math, and they repeated the same lines from the movie, and they were cheating. It was called Cheaters, I think. So I think that like it could be bastardized and abused, and it probably Turtle Boy is kind of preying upon people like that, you know. Like again, do I think they were sloppy? Yes. Do I think that it was bad policing? Yes. Do I think that something happened? But again, I don't know what. I guess that's the mystery to
No.
me. Like, what the hell happened in that house over there?
Right.
You know
What
what I mean?
happened? Nobody's
Like,
seen them.
and,
Yeah.
and they don't, and maybe they don't need to. They just need to get one juror to flip or whatever. But it's like, I don't know, what is the defense saying happened, right? Like, is it like they go in the house, they get drunk and everything, and they get into a fight, and they put him on the lawn, and then he's, you know what I mean, he dies of hypothermia. They're saying, oh shit, this could be blamed for this. Let's get the girlfriend, you know what I'm saying, who's driving the car, and let's, like, you know, back up her car to get the taillight, get his fibers. I don't know. I just feel like it's bad policing. They were drunk. It was a lot of things. And again, they did overreach with it, but it's not hard to believe that.
I'm offended by all the drunk driving.
Oh yeah, by police officers.
I lost a few friends to.
Oh wow.
And so it's a personal thing, man. It's just like they just do it like it's just like
wow
thing or something.
Brazen. Yeah.
Probably not even a second thought of it.
And I remember, by the way, you know, I remember reading Ruth's book, and she talked about how one of her heroes was the founder of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and we had her on with her, Candy Lightner, I think. And these people are amazing, right? Like that's I guess if you ask me, what's one of the reasons why I appreciate true crime is because in your mind you're like, okay, you know, if they can handle it with dignity and grace and strength, then I can too, right? That's what, you know, again, it's the idea of like, you know, it's
You're welcome.
Heroes are ordinary people put in extraordinary situations, and you could choose how you show up, right? And yeah, it's that. I think I choose to view it through those lens. But getting back to the Karen Reed case, it's also like how you do anything is how you do everything. I don't know. Like ask the O'Keefe family, like, how did she handle it afterwards? You know what I'm saying? Like, did she call them? Did she do this? And she was, you know, if she was a surrogate mother to these kids, how did she handle that? I don't know. You know, it's and I'd like to see them have more damning evidence. I think it's unusual that the prosecutors are questioning the Cellbrite evidence, right? You know, with like but that sounds plausible to me, right? Like that she did How Long to Die in the Cold, A, at the behest of Karen Reed, and B, like maybe that is when she opened the browser at 2:27. That makes sense to me.
Right. Yeah, I'm foggy on exact details, but I follow you what you're saying.
But you know what? I'm a 7. I'm probably a 6 as far as like, you know what I mean? Like, and some of this is the old.
As far as guilty.
No, I'm a 6 or 7 as far as like my interest in. You know what I'm saying? Maybe
Okay.
You know, and that reminds me of. And by the way, it's interesting because so a couple of weeks ago, like I had some childhood friends send me like a story about one of our childhood friends who, like, well, I haven't really dealt with in like 30 years, you know, since like, but he was like a chiropractor and he had like hidden cameras in his, like, and he got busted, you know, and he's like, and it was in the news all in the New York, New Jersey area. And so it was a chance for me to kind of reminisce with old friends, just like, hey, can you believe so and so? And I just kind of said, and it was kind of like, well, I don't know. He always seemed like he was kind of pervert with some of the response. Some people were like, well, I don't know, you know, like I haven't seen him in years. Who knows what people really are like right behind closed doors. And I texted, like, there's always that saying, like, what's the definition of normal? Someone you don't know very well. They were like, Steve, there's some, maybe, but it's not normal to have all these freaking cameras in your office. Like, and that's true too. Like maybe we're too permissive. Like we spend too much time
Right,
trying to
right,
understand the psychopathology or criminality rather than just condemning it, saying, no, it's wrong. That's
right,
it,
right.
Right.
But yeah, I found that story interesting. I found it again more interesting than the Chad Daybell and Lori Vale. I just thought they were nuts. They were evil people, and like,
And Chad Daybell's kids seem to be brainwashed.
Oh,
yeah,
well, they they are they're cheerleading him though. It's beyond brainwashed.
What? Yeah.
wow.
What is it?
I
Yeah.
mean, I think they really buy into his whole everything. Everything. It's
It's
really creepy.
insane, right? Because of
Yeah.
everything. Like, if you just independently go look and read about the story, you don't really come up with that, right?
And it
Mm-mm.
makes you wonder, obviously, in the Markel case, how their children are at 14 or 13,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, um, there's a very good YouTuber named Collier Landry, and
Mm-hmm.
and his dad had murdered his mom,
Yeah.
and he was 11 years old in Ohio,
Yeah.
and he's come on our show and other places in his own show, just saying, I can understand a little bit like what Buster Murdoch is going through. It's still
Right.
your dad, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like Allison Galvani too. Are
Yeah,
you familiar with her? Yeah.
I think so. Refresh my memory a little. I know.
Allison has been on Katie Kool-Aid, and she's going to do a video with
Oh,
Katie Kool-Aid.
fantastic. Oh, okay.
Allison's dad killed her mom.
Uh,
When she was a
I'll
kid.
have to check that out. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Allison's an amazing
Oh, wow.
person.
But I think what I notice, it's how vehemently these children, and they're adults and years have
Yeah.
passed, and I have some sources in the family in that whole Daybell situation.
Oh, wow.
Right. And his kids are
How old are they?
telling the
Is
truth.
Jeff
Um,
Daybell is right? The son,
they're
like, how
middle
old is
age at this
30s.
point.
is he?
Yeah,
That?
20s and 30s. The
Yeah.
youngest one might be, yeah. And they're just, you can just, it's kind of like the Karen Reed trial, as some of these people are really resisting the questions that are easy. Like, why are you having such a problem with just saying yes or no to this? Nobody's trying to
Right.
catch you. It's just like simple foundational questions. And it was like that with them too. It was very clear. They're telling a completely different line than 10 other witnesses, and
Right.
so it's beyond Kool-Aid with that family, in my opinion. They all have, I mean, of course, they're a product of their upbringing, but they're all old enough to have moved on and made an independent
Right.
choices.
What
Now,
was
I feel
what
like some of
happened?
them are brain damaged, like something wrong with
Yeah,
their heads. Yeah,
it's weird.
they're very weird.
What happened with that clerical error with JJ and all of that? With Chad wasn't going to be charged because what I didn't really hear.
Okay,
Oh,
so
I have to see
yeah,
if,
so
yeah,
yep,
I'll
so what?
defer to Don.
Yeah, so that was scary. So after the prosecution rested, which was key, the judge pointed out that there was a mistake in some of the paperwork, and it was the date of JJ's murder. It had occurred on, and whoever typed it in and typed it up or whatever put the date for Tylee's. Well, of course, the whole entire case was just presented for this other date that it was actually happened, right? September 23rd, whatever it was. I get them mixed up. But it was a big deal.
Yeah,
I mean, a big deal. And no one caught it until the judge all of a sudden caught it. And it was after they rested. Had they not rested, that could have been, fixed and all that. But they can remedy it with a jury instruction. But it did take hours to argue and research, and it wouldn't have meant that he was going to get off. I don't know that it would have meant a mistrial on the JJ part, or if he would have had to retry JJ. It never got that far.
Good.
But I think it was very bad. And of course, for the family members, right? It would have been. So if you can imagine, though, but since there are 3 victims, the trial would have gone on even if they had to take JJ's part out, his charges. But if the family members of JJ in particular would have been really
I saw an interview with
Larry.
Hey, BRB. Be right back.
Okay. Yeah, I saw an interview with the grandfather. What's his name again?
Larry Woodcock.
Such a sweet man, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I saw after that all went down that day, and it was breaking him in half.
That was the first person I thought of, was like, oh, Larry, he's gonna have but it all worked out, and he handled it. The little clip I saw of him, and I'm not watching. I'm trying not to watch any coverage,
but you could just see it.
I did see it. He handled it pretty well, because he's gone after Judge Boyce very much in the past. Like he's really gone after him, and I thought, oh, he's gonna go after somebody, but no, he handled it well. He just said it was clerical error. They're gonna work it out, and they did. But and a lot of people were like, oh, I wasn't worried, but you could cut the tension with a knife in that. I mean, it was horrifying.
Yeah, I remember the day it happened, and I heard, but then I just realized talking about it, like I never really heard the follow up on that.
Yeah. So, could it become an issue down the road? Maybe, but Judge Boyce has done a pretty good job of zipping everything up. He's still, but that was a scare. Like, so they built this whole case around this particular date, which they didn't have to do. That was part of the argument too. There were several arguments why it was, although it was a mistake and they recognized it, there were several arguments that would have allowed them to recover from that.
All right.
But changing the language of the grand jury wasn't one of them. Changing the language. And the thing is, they had an issue with the grand jury, the way they wrote up the charges in the beginning. And the state wouldn't, this was before Lori's trial even happened. And there were hearings about it. And the states didn't want to go back to the grand jury and get a new grand jury indictment from. And if they would have done that, maybe that would have solved all of these errors. But
right.
I don't know why they didn't want to go back to the grand jury, because at the time I was like, why don't you just go back to the grand jury? I mean, I know it's in the long view of how this all played out with 2 different trials, and it would have been totally worth that little extra investment, I would think.
Or whatever, right?
Yeah, it was nearly disastrous, but only for they still would have been able to go ahead with Tylee and Tammy's. But they are also saying that, I mean, there are a lot of people who think that Tylee's and Tammy's cases are not as strong as JJ's was. So it's, that's why I think a lot of people were really worried. Like, oh, and what's the jury going to think? Because they're not going to know the whole story either. So, yeah. Well, guys, yeah, it was a bombshell. It was a scary, scary one. Well, any more final questions? Did I miss anyone's questions before we let these gentlemen go?
I was trying to make it through the whole time.
Me too. I'm trying.
Without like a bathroom, because I was thinking like people were talking about like the Trump-Biden debate. Like, could they really go 90 minutes without a bathroom break? I mean, you see, like I'm sponsored by caffeine and soda. Well,
and I'm drinking.
Yeah. So bad things would have happened if I not.
I know, I'm getting there.
Those 2, if I was one of their handlers, I'd be like, you can rinse your mouth out with water, but don't swallow it. Because you can't go pee for the next 90 minutes, right?
Okay, where did the meef come from? Meef told us about this last week, but you go ahead and do that, and I'm going to be right back.
Because I would just talk to Joel and then be like, someone whose name rhymes with Meave Moen already suggested it or did this or something.
Okay.
And then, but I mean,
pardon me.
It's also like, there's a part of me that kind of remember like people would say, oh, like Michael Jackson's the gloved one, but Bruce Springsteen's the boss. So I'm like, she's CEO, she's in charge of everything. And I'm Neve Moen. And it's just funny, like you'll appreciate this. So like the other day, I forget what it was, and I forget I was using the analogy, but I remembered the actor who's also in Karate Kid, Martin Kove, was in
Oh,
Cagney and Lacey, right? And he was upset. And I was discussing Cagney and Lacey with somebody I was working with, and my friend was like, Steve, she doesn't remember Cagney and Lacey. But anyway, he was saying something like, my character's a Vietnam veteran, and he's in the office every episode pushing paper, and Cagney and Lacey are going out and kicking butts, and I was kind of like jokingly comparing myself to that. And my friend Lisa was like, Steve, hey, I forget what I was at a mom's first conference in New York, and there were like three women. There were three men there, and there was me. Like there were like four men there because it was like all women, and just about like equity for women. And it was a great conference. But it made me think of one time the New York Post. Oh, I told Tennis Girl. She said, "Fortune, where the name Eve came from." I just would joke and say, "Oh, like somebody whose name rhymes with Meave Meave Moen said so and so." And Joel started calling me Meave because he thought it was funny. So I hope I answered your question, Tennis Girl. You should play tennis with Mentor Lawyer or Joel. Joel is state champion. Yeah. But to finish that story, I was just saying, like, I was bringing up I forget why I brought it up just now with Cagney and Lacey, but yeah.
So cool. Yeah, that was a fun
Oh, you're
show.
welcome. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. Oh, but I was just using like an anachronistic reference for the people I was with, and I thought Modern Family did that cleverly because they were showing like Jay was being old compared to Phil, and like they were at like something with all of Phil's dads, and they were saying, "Remember and say anything," and then like. And then Jay was like, "That's the movie with Marty." I forget the guy who played the dad.
That was really good. I remember.
Yeah, and then he was again from John Cusack's perspective. Can I ask you one more last question, Dawn?
Sure.
Why does the Daybell case appeal to you? Because you know people involved with it. Because you think of the kids.
No. And I didn't know that I had this connection until much later. So first of all, for whatever reason, it must have been on YouTube because I don't watch television. I remember the announcements, the signs that they were missing. And I remember seeing Nate Eaton in Hawaii. I think I saw that live. And I was very upset by it, of course, because of the children. But also, I am extremely familiar with that entire area because it's outside of Yellowstone and my friend has a cabin there.
Oh, wow.
And so I've been to all these places. I know the St. Anthony Courthouse. I know exactly where it is. All these little places I've been to a couple of times. And so it's very familiar. And it's weird because it's like, it's just so odd that this all happened. And then I think I happened to catch him live also when they found the children, or when they were in the backyard excavating and thinking that they probably found the children, and Nate Eaton was up in his helicopter and all that. So I just was there for that. Like, I feel like I was there for that. And I was so concerned about these children and what happened. And then started looking into it and Tammy dying. And then I have a graphic
so crazy
that I did with Lori. Like, there are many other deaths, right? Like, not just Charles Vallow, but possibly Joe Ryan was murdered. There's like a trail of body. There's a neighbor of
cops, right?
Chad's that was killed right after, like the day after or something. The bodies were buried. Or Tylee's the second, and killed, but supposedly another one of these blood clot situations, right? And I think he might have come upon Chad when this was happening. So yeah, just a whole lot of there's just a trail that we're not even going to hear about. I think the law. This is a tiny little town, like itsy bitsy little town where this is all happening. So this had to be, and I don't mean this in the negative sense, but it had to be overwhelming for that police station to be dealing with all this and having the FBI come in and stuff. I don't think they could keep up with all of this trail of
Yeah.
bodies. Yeah, it was just all of that. So I'm not sure. It just caught me. I tend to get really upset about when a child's involved in a murder. If a child victim, sometimes I can't. It's in this case, it was just so weird. And the religion, I wanted to know what was going on, like what was happening. And from the beginning, I really did think that the children were stored away somewhere, and I wanted to know where they were. Like, where did they put them? Like some ranch? Like, where are these
Yeah.
kids? Yeah. So that's my story.
The sinking feeling I get with watching the Daybell case and then the Ruby Frankie case, and it all being tied to these belief system. I mean, it just unnerves me to even think about it, but I just think there's a lot more going on out there that we don't.
Oh, there is. There is.
Got to be a lot of it, I think, right?
I totally believe it. Now, there was another neighbor who was interviewed on another channel a while back, and I don't even know if you can find the interview anymore, but she talked about that. Do you remember in the trial recently where the brother and the sister and brother-in-law were saying Chad was trying to get them to move there too? Because this is this like land that's going to be special and it's going to be
the idea that everyone was trying to move. Yeah.
Well, evidently there was a huge number of people that did move to that area and did a mass exodus when they found the children. So this wasn't just a cult of 7 or 8 people. This was something much with many more people. And I think they're still, I think they still believe that these children, Chad's kids that we were talking about earlier, appear to still have the same, if not beliefs, behaviors. Like they're still into it. So yeah, it's a lot bigger.
The Warren Jeff stuff before all of that, and the way that Warren Jeffs, right?
Right. There's that whole area is largely Mormon, or
right,
spin-offs from with a lot of there's polygamy homes with just women and children. Just
it was like
like jails.
Do you remember the HBO series Big Love?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was about that thing. Who was the actor? Remind me. Paxton.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I had but it was a series. It was a branch of. It was a branch of Mormonism, and they owned like a big like Home Depot like store and ran that, and they had houses all next to each other with the connected backyards, and they were trying to hide it from their community that they were polygamous. Yeah, it was a really well done series. Bill Paxton, thank you, hey Mona.
Or Tom Paxton. Somebody's saying Tom, but it's Paxton.
It's Bill.
Tom Bill. Okay. So Corey Richins, also Utah, obviously, and then also Jared Bridegan's.
Yeah.
White.
And those go into that whole greed thing, right? Just excessive greed of just wanting control of everything. And Corey Richins, well, now we found out that she had this spurned lover now or something, right?
I didn't hear that, but I did hear her lawyer quit. Sky Lazaro quit.
Yeah, I think they ran.
Yeah. Did Steve freeze? Did we lose you, Steve?
Yeah, I'm freezing.
Okay. I was like, I don't think he's moving.
Sorry, I know.
No, well, at least we can hear you. At least we
can hear you. Okay.
Maybe that's a sign. Maybe that's a sign to say hey,
Yes.
but you
Yes.
guys run longer than me, so
Yes.
this
Yes.
was
It's
awesome. And I
Two and a half
mean,
hours,
was
I think.
yeah,
yes. Yes.
Yeah. Very
So
enjoyable. I'm glad. Thank you for inviting me on.
thank you both for coming. And it
thank you
was
so
really,
much.
yeah, the extra half hour with TSP to get to know
Amazing.
his
Yeah.
creative journey was special. I've really wanted to do this for a long, long time and
Yeah.
loved it. The chat's been great, and I'm sorry chat's kind of hard to keep up with sometimes, but I think I got most everyone's questions.
Chat's
But that
all
might be another time when these gentlemen might come back and we can ask them
Love
again.
it. Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone.
Steve,
Thank
Steve, I have a question for you about
Sure.
STS. So, how do you? Because you guys get a lot of viewers and stuff. Does Joel? Is somebody picking questions out or kind of?
Oh, we have mods, and that's really Ileana, who's fantastic. But I mean, we have
Okay.
really good mods, and I think
Because the flow of the show has to. I mean, if you really want a good flow, then somebody has to kind of be like maintaining that, right?
No, they do a great job, and I think it's I think it's kind of an art as much as a science, right? And you have to, so
you have to be listening to the conversation and kind of anticipating a bit and
right.
And be in the host's head a little bit about maybe where they want to go with it, perhaps, and all of that. So yeah.
Right. Well, I hope I did half as good of a job. By the way, one of the questions
you did a great job.
One of the questions I would thank you. One of the questions I missed is, and I was actually going to ask you, Steve, is how's it going for Joel and Carm on the book tour?
Oh, I think it's gone really well. I mean, they did. They spoke at the Museum of Jewish Heritage in New York. They did an event in Toronto with Ruth Markel introduced them. They did one in Boston, and famed like Mindhunter Ann Burgess introduced them. So they really got a chance to, they had a lot of support along the way. I think it's scary to kind of put some stuff out there. They were joking they probably were going to kill each other, on the trip, but I think it's great.
Time.
I think it's it's hard work to write a book. It's hard work to do it, and I think it's I give them a lot of credit, and it's I know they're going to be back. So yeah.
And media tours have to be because you have to kind of get yourself up being in the public and right. So
yeah, that's a lot of energy.
It takes a lot of energy, and I think it's scary to like be in different areas and wonder if anybody's going to show up, and if they do, who shows up.
My big fear.
It's stressful,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to perform for people, and I think it's I think it's gone really well, and I think they're pleased with it, and so I'm happy for them. And I think Judy has the right attitude. Like it's great, and it is an important story. I think as Jews, or just like look at the anti-Semitism in this world, and look what you see on college campuses, and so I think it's important, and to get the message out there, and that's who they are. Like, what I mean? Like, you can't change who you are. Do you know what I'm saying? As much as you want to please everybody or mollify people, or not kind of step on people's toes by just saying who you are, what your background is, but it's hard. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to, I don't know, my dad used to say that to me too. Like if you go through the life with the name Cohen, for most people, they're going to assume you're Jewish, and, that's going to have its good things and bad things, I guess, so, so that's kind of what I got for you,
That's nice. I wish them the best, because it's like you said, it's like writing a book is not easy. that is not easy. And then, all the other stuff, like you were saying, it's nerve-wracking to go around and just hoping people show up. But I happened upon Fancy's live stream the other night. She was doing a test on Instagram, and I somehow ended up on the live stream with her by clicking some button. But anyway.
Wow. Oh, I was on her live stream the other day when she was walking through West Hollywood. I don't know
No, this was a different one. She was at Milk Studios.
Oh, wow.
In these really cool photography. Anyway, she had just mentioned that that she had talked to Ruth, that Ruth had seen Joel and Carm, and that they had a good time at the events, both events that they did. Because there were 2 events up in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
So
and I think there was one at the Holocaust Museum, and there was one other one, and I'm looking forward to hearing about it. I might see Joel on Tuesday or something down here, and then we're all going to go to Crime Con in Nashville, and so I also produce. I also work with Chris Hansen to Catch a Predator.
Oh, you do?
So, yeah, and so for there, I'm nominated for best. We're nominated for best podcast. Predators I've caught. So, so I have my hands.
I actually watched that. Yeah.
Nice. When is Crime Con again? So people know.
Next Friday.
Oh, okay.
I think it's next Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I think I may head down there Friday, but there'll be, like I mentioned, Ann Burgess, Chris Hansen will be there. Anthony Zucker, who created CSI. I mean, again, I have no dog in this fight, really, but I went to the one in Vegas and the one in Orlando, and they're interesting. There's a lot of people very interested in true crime, and I think they do a good job, and people are happy about it. So it's nice to meet some of these people, and see them. You're not that far, right? Society Page, come on down.
I'm 4 hours away.
So come, yeah. Let me know. Dawn could connect us. I mean, ever since I got those temporary restraining orders put on me, people are reluctant to connect with me. But if you want to try.
Yeah, the one person I'd like to meet, the person that everyone should know this, the person I kind of fanboy over is I like Anjanette Levy quite a bit.
I'll tell her.
Coverage, and I think she just does such a good job.
In Cincinnati, by the way,
Yep.
And all right, well, if you give me $5, I could do. So maybe
she follows my regular account, and
I got you.
And
you don't need to be a Rockefeller to help a fella. I got you. I'm glad you told me. She put it out in the universe. No, but I'm saying, like, I got to know Anjanette, and she's great.
Yeah, I knew that you guys. I knew that
friendly. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the nice people I've met. I feel bad that I'm frozen because, like you hear me speak, but you don't realize, like, I'm tongue in cheek. And so, but I'm glad, like, you put that out in the universe. And again, I could, in the Make-A-Wish Foundation, I can, except you don't have cancer or like a kid.
I tell her when particularly, I think her new show, Crime Fix, I think it's really good. It's grown. Like, it was rough at the beginning, like all new shows are, but I think it's really coming to its own and pretty quickly. And she does great interviews. And she follows me on Twitter, and so I'll tell. I got you.
I'll be saying less. I'll be the bridge over troubled water. But Dawn, connect us. All right.
Yes, will do.
Okay.
Will do.
And
sure.
Hopefully you won't rue the day.
No, I'll do it right away.
I have people in Bloomington. I got peeps out there too. So.
Oh, nice. Like what kind of?
I've friend who's a professor. People in Indianapolis. Cousin who's at the music school. Like,
Jacobs.
Is that he's incredibly talented.
That school of music, I'm telling you, I've been to some just random recitals because there's some of the very best musicians coming out in the world.
He'd gone to Oxford undergrad, and he's like a virtuoso. Like and so he's in. I'll have to let you know what he's doing there. He's on he's unbelievable. Yeah. So, but yeah, I always, like I said, I swim with the fishes, fly with the birds. But I like people in the Midwest. I definitely do.
Yeah, it's friendly here. So
Yeah. Um, yeah. I can't believe I froze. Okay, so in summary, you can't see me, and I have this mug on, the sour. Okay,
Not
so
too bad. It could
okay,
be worse. It could be
yeah,
worse.
exactly.
I feel
Well,
like I'm
thank
Be
you.
like, I could be like,
stared down by Steve.
I could be
Yeah.
sort of like Don, like Wendy's face, like in
Right.
or Charlie's like mugshot,
Some of
which you
those,
have a lot of
that
fun with.
Wendy profile one where she's doing the downward frown, like thing. That's one of my favorites. I've used it too. It's
Oh,
just
And
every
by the
time I see
way, I'm with TSP on this one. It's not like I don't like her; it's that I hate her. Right?
Mm.
I mean, she gets under my skin
it's
like
triggers.
a bad person.
Yeah.
Bad
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you're the boss, Dawn.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I can't tell if your lips are still moving. Anyway, thanks again so much, chat, especially for being here to support all of us here on the screen.
Yes.
Society page and
Thank you.
Steve Mohan for being here with me.
Thanks, chat. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Okay,
Thanks.
good
Bye.
night. Bye. Bye. Thanks.
Night, Don.
Bye.
I still